Hey guys, we're going to be getting started in 2 minutes. Hey guys, so welcome back if you were tuned into the first half in Spanish, and welcome if it's your first time here. We have some amazing world-class guests, guest speakers, and we even have a few surprises. So it's going to be fun. Definitely buckle your seatbelt. All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys for attending TEDx Condado Live. I think this is probably one of the first TEDx that has been done on a live stream via Zoom. So I want to thank you guys for uh, tuning in. People have asked us why do it on Zoom, why not reschedule it? And I want to be clear, we're doing both. So, people need hope, people need something to look forward to. I think a lot of people were looking forward to this event, so we wanted to both deliver the event digitally, and then we're going to be pushing the event back, hopefully to September once some of these things subside in the political and medical climate. Um, and Our organizer, Luis, he actually contacted the coronavirus a few weeks ago. So about 2 weeks ago, he was on a business trip in New York, and he very unfortunately came in contact with the virus, and he's been on quarantine. He was hospitalized for uh, over a week, and now he's doing better, but he is still recovering. But I want to say that I'm very grateful for him, and he gave us a message to read. So I'm going to go ahead and read that message. So he said that hurricanes, political changes, earthquakes, and world pandemics All these things have happened and set us out on this path to inspire and change Puerto Rico. I myself caught the deadly coronavirus, COVID-19, and thanks to God, I survived. On April 1st, we will set sail on a mission and bring together great minds to make a real change. Minds from all throughout Latin America. Speakers from Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Colombia, Spain, Mexico, Peru, Venezuela, Ecuador, all throughout Latin America. Speakers from the United States, American speakers who have moved to the island of Puerto Rico, and Puerto Ricans who have left the island and live all around the world, and members of the diaspora. Join me as we establish new ways to digitally and physically change the world. So I want to say thank you again to Louis. Thank you again to Karina. Thank you again to Super Manny and all the other people that put in a lot of hard work. I'm leaving out many people, but all the people have put in so much hard work to make this event a reality. I also want to thank our sponsors. So I want to thank Marriott. Although we are not hosting this event at Marriott, the next event will be there. So I want to thank Marriott for their sponsorship. And we also want to thank our sponsor, ProprioX, and Brian from ProprioX. Okay, great. So let's get into it. Our next speaker is an incredible human being. I've known him for a number of years. When I first met him, he told me that he wanted to be the Tony Robbins of Colombia, and he wanted to have a big impact on that community. And he's really, really inspired me throughout the years. I've seen his growth and his progress. Incredible human being and free thinker. Incredible entrepreneur. He's had many business ventures in his career. My very, very good friend, Fernando Valencia. Fernando, are you on the line?
Yeah, brother, I am here. Thank you so much for those words and, coming through and still making this happen.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for being here. So I will leave it to you. Do you have slides?
I do not have slides. I can turn on the camera, so you tell me what it's best for, all the viewers. You know them better than I do.
Great.
I can jump on video.
I'll activate. I think I have to do something. Yeah, there you go. Now you should be able to activate your video.
All right, let's give it a shot. Hey, what's happening, everyone? So Anthony, thank you so much for having me here, and I'm going to make sure we stay true on time integrity. I believe we have 15 minutes here together, and I would be remiss if I didn't, stop for a second and say thank you to Louis, Superman, you, Tony, everyone in the Disrupt team that have made this possible. It is definitely very impressive that throughout the midst of what is happening, the current, pandemic, you honor and blessed to be here with all of you. So let's jump in because this is a time. And even though there is fear, there is doubt, and there's many other dynamics in the world, I also genuinely believe that it is the #1 time in history to merge ecosystems. And what I'm going to share with you here today in the span of 13 minutes is a formula that I have discovered, partnered, and now bring into the world known as integrity-based human influence. Now let's pre-frame a few things. If I were to ask you right now, you have 10 seconds to explain to me or to the world or to anyone how you go from hello to yes with someone, my challenge to you and my hallucination would be that you wouldn't have a linear process. You would have unlinear things like you got to get people to like you, you got to listen, you got to build rapport. And the biggest, the pain point in business outside of possibly marketing is sales. And for the most part, sales is a pretty ugly word. So I'm not here to teach you how to sell. What I am here is to open up your listening to the possibility that influence is the #1 superhuman ability that any male or female could have. Unfortunately, we can't fly yet, maybe, I don't know, Area 51 different dynamics. But my hallucination is that the number one superpower on the planet is influence. Now, if you can think of anyone that has impacted your life in any way, they've had influence, from Kobe Bryant, Derek Jeter, Mandela, Mother Teresa, and anything in between, Tony Robbins. And thank you, Tony, for sharing that. All of these superhuman people, Mother Teresa, they had something. Tupac, they had influence. They had many other things, but the common thread is influence. And when we look at gentlemen like Thomas Edison and Tesla, both extremely, extremely knowledgeable, intelligent individuals, yet one of them is mostly revered in history and the other is not. Not because one was better human, less of a human. It was because one of them had the ability to go from hello to yes with people. So what I'm here to do with you today is to give you a brief introduction into this lovely formula called integrity-based human influence. And before we jump in and I tell you what that is, because that's how we're going to end the conversation, I'm here to tell you that this was not something that was written on a napkin. This was created, distilled, discovered by a gentleman called Sean Callaghy, who is now my business partner, one of four, in this company called Unblinded. He is just recently turned 50 years old, legally blind, and it's not the story. And he was able to create a national law firm after coming out of law school, $100,000 in debt, 28 years old, 1 year later, had an office in 5 states with 200 employees, and is now known as America's Lawyer. And I share this with you as social proofing because, as Anthony mentioned, Tony Robbins long ago was someone that I could barely think of having a conversation and touching. And this year I've had the pleasure of having conversations with Les Brown, Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, Joseph McClendon, who's partners with Tony Robbins on Unlimited Power. We were able to write and create programs together. We're on webinars together. I've spoken on stages with them. And I'm not sharing all this with you to be like, hey, look at Fernando, he's cool. I'm sharing this with you because 365 days ago, these were people that I thought we would never be able to touch. And now they're coming to us because of ecosystem merging. And even though they might have more followers and be known as an influencer, the truth is they don't know how to influence. So just because you have millions of followers and things online and you're an influencer in the world of 2020 vernacular does not mean you actually have a skill and possess the ability to go from hello to yes with people. So now let's step in and talk about what is integrity-based human influence. Integrity-based human influence is a formula to achieve anything you want in life. And it's broken up into 3 parts: self-mastery, influence mastery, and process mastery. Now let's pause here for a second, because a lot of human beings, and myself included in the past, we lived in this world where I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to listen and read a ton of information. I'm going to digest and pick apart the best, and that's going to be the formula. And there's been things like spin selling, Dale Carnegie, and many other type of Robert Cialdini and influence, many other type of dynamics. Landmark, even, for example, which I love, which is actually Tony brought me in there. Tony Delgado was the gentleman who enrolled me into Landmark. I love all these dynamics. Yet, if you were to ask any of those professionals or anyone that has even been a part of it to explain to you on a linear step of like what is or how do they go from hello to yes with people, it just wouldn't be a linear way. It is abstract, difficult, takes full immersion, and for the most part, untransferable. This formula is transferable. And now let's talk about what the formula is. The formula is built of 4 steps, 10 indispensable elements, and 4 energies. That's the entire formula. It fits in the palm of your hand. It's 4 steps, 10 indispensable elements, and 4 energies. The steps are building emotional rapport, pain and yes, conveying and creating a heroic, unique identity, agreement formation. The indispensable elements, known as smaller QVC, are scarcity, matching and mirroring, acknowledgement, level 5 listening, love everyone, emotional and energetic transference, reciprocity. QVC is question mastery, validation, and congruence. The energies are Zeus, goddess, inspiration, and fun. These are all the energies that are put and built within integrity-based human influence. So as I jump into this car, as we're taking a ride here in New Jersey, I'm here with my brother. Say hi, by the way. Hey, what's up, man? We want to step into how do you apply this formula. Now, I know we don't have a lot of time left. We have about 2 minutes left and my phone's at 1%. So I will leave you with this. To everyone out there, the number one superhuman ability on how to go from hello to yes with people, influence, is built within this formula. And if you're looking to make more money in less time with more magic, now is the time to begin to merge ecosystems. Now is the time to begin to rise And I'm so honored and privileged to be here with you at the first TEDx event to ever be streamed live. And I'd like to finish with this. I'm so proud of you. If you ever wanted to impact, you have impacted. And do this. You are more in the formula than you know. Any level of success takes a formula. And what the formula gave me $1 billion business in my 20s. Everyone here to me on. My name's Fernando Valencia, and you can find me at unblindedmastery.com, social media, Fernando Valencia. I love you all. God bless. This is the time where leadership is important. Let's stick together. Let's support each other. Let's love each other, because humanity will stick together and we will overcome. Thanks again, and have a great day, everyone.
Right. Looks like we had a little bit of technical difficulties with Fernando, but I'm gracious for him hopping on. I know that the entire state of New York and New Jersey, where he is on lockdown. So hopefully, him and his family and everyone else that's out there is safe. Okay. Cool. Okay. So next up is Teddy. Teddy, are you here?
Hey, hey everybody.
Hey, Teddy, you're not in a moving vehicle. I'm so happy.
No, no, I'm not. How's everybody doing? Hey, Anthony. Hey, Manny.
We're blessed. We're blessed. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Of course, of course. I just want to start by saying that I hope everybody is home safe and healthy wherever they're at. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Great. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Do you have slides?
Yeah, I do have slides. So for those that don't know me, usually I speak about female empowerment. I speak about women in tech. I own a marketing agency for small businesses. However, with everything that's going on, I've decided to switch my talk and give you guys some value on things that you could do to make the best out of the situation, and I hope it helps. So let's get right to it. We've titled it Beat the Odds. Anthony, can everyone see the screen? Anthony, can everyone see the screen?
Yeah, everyone awesome. Can see it.
All right, cool. So, let's talk about 3 things that we can do to overcome improbability in this time of this crisis. Again, I introduced myself. I've worked with over 250 small businesses, which are now, incredibly hurting, and we're proud to be helping them along the way to thrive in the digital age. And we hope to do that for many, many other small businesses. I came from the Dominican Republic, moved to the US, started with, like my friend Anthony says, with Wi-Fi in a dream. For the last 7 to 8 years, I've been working remotely, and I've started building my agency 6 years ago from scratch, just with the computer and with resources online from the Dominican Republic to New York City. So I know for many of us can be a change in routine if you're used to being structured, if you're used to having, going out and stuff, but it is one of the biggest opportunities in our lifetime that we have to utilize Wi-Fi, to utilize our, technology to build things that could potentially change the world. So it is a very sad time, but it's also a time that we can seize this opportunity and make something happen out of it. So, by Wi-Fi and marketing and digital marketing have given me everything. I travel around the world speaking to young girls, young women. I was able to get my parents out of a really difficult financial situation. And I vouch for people starting, online businesses or at-home businesses, because it can really change your life. And there's no better time to start than right now. So let's start. Key number one, I believe that your odds are your advantage. So those odds that you're fighting against, those odds that you're trying to, overcome, they can be your biggest advantage. When a lot of people see crisis, entrepreneurs and thought leaders and people that have put the work to develop themselves see opportunity. Right now, we're living in a moment, unprecedented times, where we're all home. Hopefully you're home and not in the hospital. You're not taking care of someone who has the coronavirus. But we are able, and we have more time than ever, to build the things that we care about, to reevaluate what it is that we want to do, want to build. And one question that comes up to me is like, how can I be of value to myself and others during this time, right? Like, how can I take this time to find the value to give to others and for myself as well? What are the things that I need to reevaluate in order to build something that I'm passionate about, in order to take this time and make the best out of it? So, for example, my aunts, I'm Latina, young. I'm an immigrant. I come from the Dominican Republic onto New York City, in a city that's so chaotic, and I took those odds towards the advantages that I've built today. And I hope that we see those differences that we have, whatever narrative you're telling yourself, and we take them to better ourselves and to serve those, to bring value to those around us. So that's key number one. Take those odds that you are saying are odds, and understand that they're your biggest advantage. See this crisis as an opportunity to build something you are passionate about, to see how can you utilize your value and be a service of others. Two, understanding fear. Huge. We have to understand that fear is there to protect us, that although we need to be updated with the news, with everything that's going on, fear is just going to paralyze us. It's not going to let us build a new normal for ourselves during this time of crisis. So the moment we understand fear, we understand that we need to accept it, we need to face it, we need to understand it in order to overcome it. It's the moment where we recognize it's always going to be with us. It's always going to stay there, especially now. If you turn on the news, everything induces that fear, increases that fear. However, if we learn that it's just there to protect us from not doing stupid things, to protect us to be a rationalization, right? The more comfortable we will become with it, and the more we will be able to act despite of the fear. But we can't deny it, say, okay, yeah, I'm afraid, so I'm not going to do anything. No, we need to accept it and embrace it, and still do despite the fear. And I'm not saying do not listen to the news, do not be oblivious to the negative. It is a crisis. It is something we've never experienced before. But understand that fear will paralyze you if you let it. But if you understand it, hopefully you can act despite the fear. Number three, with all this time we have going on, think about what new skills can you learn. How can you utilize this time to learn new skills that will leverage and would serve that you're so passionate about, right? Like, what new skills can I learn that are very helpful during this economy, that I've always wanted to learn before, and because of quote unquote not having time, I couldn't. How is it that what is it that I'm going to educate myself on that's going to take me up a notch and bring me up a notch on the things that I want to do. There's a ton out there, of course. I would recommend if you love having a mentor or someone to guide you along the way, I would recommend any courses of those, entrepreneurs online. If you like to feel more personal, if not, there is an Ivy League source of courses online that maybe I can drop you guys the link after this talk, that you can take a free course from any Ivy League school and learn a new skill or learn or have that certification that will propel you to the next level, and that will make you feel more confident and more empowered to act and build and grow whatever it is that you want to build and grow. And lastly, I wanted to leave you guys with a question. And some food for thought, right? Like now we are able to just step back and analyze what's important to us. And if you can just think about this and say, in the rush to return to normal, what's worth rushing back to? And I'll leave you guys with that. I've personally reevaluated my relationships, my health, the things we do in my company, my team. I've reevaluated so many things, just taking a step back and looking things from a macro perspective. And I hope that question answers and helps you reevaluate the things that would be worth rushing back to once everything's back to normal, to our new normal. So with that said, I hope everyone is safe. I hope your families are safe. Unfortunately, my families have lost a few members in the Dominican Republic due to the coronavirus. This is something very serious, but I do find that we should remain optimistic. We should be more united than ever. And if there's anything my team and I can do to help you during this crisis, please feel free to reach out personally via Instagram. And nothing. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Manny. I miss you guys so much, and I'm glad we're safe, and I'm glad we've taken this time to talk about important ideas that matter.
Thank you, Teddy. Okay, awesome. Super Manny, whenever you want to take the wheels, please be free. I'm going to get into the next guest, but maybe you can take the wheels after this. Okay, so our next guest speaker is John Lee Dumas, my friend. All the way from sunny Puerto Rico. I got my Puerto Rico background too.
Love it.
What is up, my friend? How are you?
Doing well. The sun is shining. The birds are singing. All is good.
Beautiful. Well, so I'll give you a quick introduction. So those of you who don't know, John Lee Dumas, you've been living under a rock. He is like the god of podcasts. He inspired me to move down to Puerto Rico. And he's the host of the Entrepreneur on Fire podcast. He moved down here and created this incredible, amazing movement. And I want to thank you so much for hosting, being a part of this event. And thank you so much for coming down and sharing your experience.
Well, thank you so much for that incredible introduction. And I truly am fired up to be here. So I do want to thank everybody who's responsible for putting this together. And of course, my thoughts and prayers are going out to everybody who's being affected by Corona and COVID-19, which essentially is every single person in this world. So that's kind of why I personally also shifted my talk a little bit from what it was going to be to what I want to focus on now, which is why today is an amazing time for you to pursue your big idea. Now, the reality is you are going to have conversations 6 months ago, 3 months ago with people, and you're going to ask them, hey, how's your day going? Like, what's going on in your life? And they're just going to look back at you and say, I am so busy. Like, I'm just so busy. Like, there's work and there's driving the kids around and there's shopping and then there's shopping. And oh yeah, like that reminds me, I need to go shopping later. And like everybody is just so busy. And I totally get that. My life was pretty busy as well, traveling everywhere, doing a lot of great things. Now things are a little bit different. And a lot of us are under quite a serious lockdown, especially if you're in Puerto Rico, like I am. I've been here since May of 2016. So I'm about to hit my 4th year in Puerto Rico, which has been an amazing experience. Shout out to all of my Palmas del Mar peeps that are watching this as well. Of course, Palmas del Mar, the best community in Puerto Rico. And I really think that now is a phenomenal time to reassess that I'm so busy to, hey, what can I actually do today, right now, to start pursuing my big idea? Because a lot of those people that you would ask and they would say they're so busy, if you would follow up with a question of, well, are you busy pursuing your dreams? Are you busy waking up and being so excited and fired up that you're about to take on whatever challenges you have laid out for you today that you put in your calendar, in your schedule? A lot of them would be like, well, no, I'm just kind of doing my thing. Like I'm working, I'm shopping, I'm driving the kids around, I'm doing this. I can't honestly say I'm living my dream life or I'm living my big idea. And now that is why I really think it's a huge opportunity for you to do just that. Live your big idea. Now, let me define big idea for you. Your big idea is where you're able to combine something that you're passionate about with an area of expertise that you have and add value to the world. So take something you're passionate about, add an area of expertise that you have, skills you've acquired over the years, and what does that result in? That results in you adding value to this world. Now, before I get into a quick exercise about how to get to your big idea, let me share with you the 2 ways that people get this wrong. Usually, people do one of 2 things. They say, okay, I want to come up with my big idea. I'm really excited to do that. So what am I excited about? What am I passionate about? And they list all these things out, and then they choose one of those things they're passionate about, and then they go all in, and they think that's their big idea. And then they realize 6 months down the road, a year down the road, sometimes 2 years down the road, they're like, man, I've been waking up every day excited because I'm passionate about this thing, but it's not making any money. It's not generating any revenue. It's not getting much traction. And I don't know about everybody watching, but I know most people watching, like me, can't do things for years and years and years, no matter how fun it is, if it's not generating some sort of revenue so we can put food in our mouths and shelter over our heads. And so what is that first mistake that people make just going after their passion? Well, they realize they just have a hobby, and hobbies are fine and you should have hobbies, but that can't be your big idea. So scenario 2 is people do the opposite. They say, I don't want a hobby. I don't just want a hobby. So I'm just going to look at all the things I'm good at. Like, where's my area of expertise? What am I skillful at? And they list out all these things that they're really good at. They're skillful at, like things that they've acquired over the years, knowledge-wise, and they pick one of those things. And then guess what? 2 months go by, 4 months go by, 6 months go by, and they're just waking up every single day and they're doing things that they're really good at. They're doing things that they have expertise in, and they're getting some traction because people like value, people like expertise. But then they start realizing, man, I'm kind of losing some steam here. Like, I don't really enjoy this. I don't have any passion for this. I don't have any excitement for this. I'm good at it, but I don't necessarily have excitement for it. And so guess what? You lose momentum. You stop doing all the things that it takes to be a really big success. And then you have competitors that love doing this thing, and they're going to surpass you quickly because they love doing it. When you love doing something, next level. And that's the whole point of your big idea, is it's not just your passions or just your expertise. It's got to be a combination of the 2. You've got to find that middle ground, that zone of fire where your passions are uniting with your expertise, where your excitement is actually commingling with your skill sets that you have. Like that's your area, that area is your zone of fire. That's where your big idea is going to lie. So just real quick, and I drew this up. This is a very professional drawing, so bear with me here. It's a simple piece of paper. Take a piece of paper out at some point over the next couple of days, because I know you have the time. You can draw a line down the middle. On the left-hand side, write the word passion. On the right-hand side, write the word expertise. Set your smartphone timer for 5 minutes. And then once you press start, you're going to spend the next 5 minutes writing down everything on this left-hand side that you're passionate about, things that you're fired up about. What excites you today? What did you love as a child, as a young adult, as an adult? If you had the whole day tomorrow and you had nothing to do, no responsibilities, what would you do? What would you do with this entire day that would fill you with passion and joy and excitement? Then boom, the timer is going to go off. But use all 5 minutes. Really do some deep thinking here. Then on the right-hand side, do the same thing. Reset the timer, 5 minutes. And guess what? Write down everything that you're an expert in. Write down your areas of expertise, skills you've acquired over the years, knowledge that you have as an individual. Like you have a lot of things you should be filling in here. Go to family, go to friends, go to loved ones and say, hey, if someone wants to come up to you and say, hey, what is John good at? How would you answer that question? Write these things down. Do some detective work. Find things that, number one, that you're good at, that you know you're good at, that you have areas of expertise in. And then number two, get out there and find out what other people think you're good at, because you might just assume that everybody's good at these things and you could be dead wrong. That could be a hidden area of expertise for you. And then the next step is you want to be looking at the passions and the expertise and say, hey, where do these overlap? Like, where do these actually connect? Where am I finding some commingling between both my passions and my expertise? So a quick, for instance, I launched Entrepreneurs on Fire back in 2012, which for 2,000 days in a row, I interviewed a successful entrepreneur and shared their story on a podcast, Entrepreneurs on Fire, for 2,000 days in a row, 5.5 years. Now the podcast is 3 days a week, but for 5.5 years, it was every single day. So how did I come up with that big idea? Well, by doing this, on my left-hand side, one of my passions was listening to and speaking with successful people. I loved having conversations with successful people. It lit me up inside. I was learning from them. I was being educated about it. I loved it. I was passionate about that. I read the books, listen to audiobooks. When I could, meet somebody in person, I would talk their ear off. I would listen to their ear off. I would ask questions. And then in my area of expertise, I also found, hey, I spent 8 years as an officer in the US Army. I actually learned how to interrogate people. I learned how to have conversations with people. I learned how to present in front of commanding generals while I was in Iraq during a time of war, like really high level, high pressure stuff. Like, you think Oprah has some pretty scary interviews. Well, try giving a presentation to a 5-star general about on a maneuver you're going to do that evening in Fallujah, Iraq, like pretty scary stuff. But I was trained to do those things. So it was an area of my expertise. I combined those two things, being pretty good at interviewing people, interrogating people, facilitating conversations, as well as my joy of speaking to successful entrepreneurs. And I found my zone of fire. That zone of fire was somewhere in the middle. And that was to create a daily podcast, a daily interview-based podcast where I would do that, where I would have conversations with the world's most successful entrepreneurs. That was my zone of fire. I launched that back in 2012. And since then, I've released over 2,500 episodes. Entrepreneurs on Fire gets over 1 million listens per month. It's been a net profit 7-figure business since 2014, every single year. So all of those things came from my zone of fire. So that's the exercise I want you to go through to get to your big idea, Now, I see we got about 3 or 4 minutes left. So I kind of want to end with a bang, because a lot of people will do an exercise like this. And then they'll say, well, what do I do next? Now I feel like I have my big idea because I went through this process. I have a big idea. What do I do next? What you need to do next is very simple. You need to sit down, sit your butt in a chair now that you have this big idea, and write out who your avatar is. Who is your perfect listener if you have a podcast? Who is your perfect viewer if you have a YouTube show? Who is your perfect client or your perfect customer? Who is your avatar? That's what your avatar is. All of those things I just described, that is your avatar. Your ideal customer, client, viewer, listener, consumer of your contents. That is your avatar. Sit down, write that out, get so specific. I'm talking age, I'm talking name, I'm talking gender, I'm talking location, I'm talking as specific as you can be. I'm gonna give you a real quick example. I won't go into super detail, but I have my avatar so dialed in. His name is Jimmy. He's 40 years old. He has a wife and kids, ages 3 and 5. He drives to work by himself every single day. It's a 25-minute commute to work. He gets to his job, and then he sits in that cubicle at a job he doesn't like. And for 8 hours, he sits there and just dislikes the work that he does. But then he jumps back in his car, drives home. It's a 35-minute commute home because he gets stuck in a little bit of afternoon traffic. Then he gets home, he plays with his kids, has dinner with his family, puts his kids to bed, hangs out with his wife for a little bit. And then he goes and he has what I call a little Jimmy pity party, because he thinks to himself, why am I spending 90% of my waking hours doing things that I don't enjoy doing? Commuting to a job I don't like, sitting in a cubicle at a job I don't like, getting stuck in traffic on the afternoon commute, and only 10% of my waking hours am I spending with those that I love, with my kids, with my wife, with my family. Why? Why is this backwards? Now, you might be asking, why is that person my avatar? Well, it's because Jimmy needs to be listening to Entrepreneurs on Fire every single morning when he's driving to work, so he can hear my guests talk about their failures, so he can learn that it's okay to fail. And then when he's driving home at night, he can listen to my guests talk about their aha moments, so he can understand, hey, this is what it looks like to have an idea and turn that idea into success. And then instead of having that little pity party every single night on his couch by himself, he can listen to my lightning round where I'm asking my guests their favorite resource, their favorite book, their favorite software or tool. And so he's starting to put the right things into his mind. And you might say, well, John, why do you need to get that specific on who your avatar is? Because I had my big idea, my zone of fire, Entrepreneurs on Fire. But now I need to know at every fork in the road, do I go left or do I go right? Because there's going to be a million forks in the road as you're moving forward with your big idea. I'm not the person to answer that question, because I'm not the perfect listener for my podcast. I'm the host of my podcast. I am leading my audience, Fire Nation. I'm not the perfect listener for Entrepreneurs on Fire, but Jimmy is. So whenever I get to one of those forks in the road, I can look in the mirror, not in the mirror because it's not me, but I can look my avatar in the virtual eye and say, what would Jimmy do? WWJD, what would Jimmy do? And then that's my answer. And I'm off to the races. Left, right, left, left, right. And now I can make decisions quick, make them fast. But I can take my idea, my big idea, to that next level. So during these crazy times, while we're stuck at home, while we're contained, we're confined, and I know the dogs are barking and the kids are screaming and this is happening and this is happening, but you've got to find time to carve some space up for yourself and to say, now is the time for me to create my big idea, and then to pursue my big idea by identifying my avatar, that perfect customer, client, listener, viewer, and move forward with this. Because what this world needs post-corona and post-COVID-19, what it needs are people that are living their best life, that are people that are bringing their best idea to this world, are people that aren't just waking up and busy because they're doing all of those things, but they are living the life they want to be living. They're jumping out of bed excited because they get to pursue a passion of theirs, that they're actually solving problems and creating solutions and adding value to the world. Your big idea is there. You just need to sit down, identify it, and then pursue it. So I want to say once again, thank you to Tony. Thank you to Louis. Hope you're feeling better, brother. Hope everybody on the island of Puerto Rico is doing as well as can be hoped for, not to mention the entirety of the world. My best to everybody and the rest of this, and I look forward to hopefully being able to be in person at the event this coming fall 2020. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Johnny Dumas, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing those words of wisdom. And honestly, I think it's right now is the most powerful time for us to really live out our passions, like you mentioned, and to really find out what is that thing that is our zone of fire and just go for it. So I really thank you for sharing that message with all the listeners as well. Oh, perfect. Then without further ado, let us continue. And for our next guest, our next speaker that we have is Peter Schiff, who is an economist and financial broker, dealer, and author, and a frequent guest on national news and host of the Peter Schiff Show podcast. So everyone, please welcome Peter Schiff onto the virtual stage at TEDx Condado.
Hello?
Hey, Peter, we can hear you. You should be able to
Hello?
Hey, Peter,
Huh?
we can hear
Hey,
you,
how's it
and
going?
if you use the settings, you should be able to open your video too.
Yeah, we've got the video. We're just trying to do a white balance. You know, there's no air conditioning in here, so it's killing me. The studio, the air is out and there's no one to fix it. So
Oh, wow. Are you here in Puerto Rico?
yeah, I live here.
Very cool. No, I knew that, but I wasn't sure if you were somewhere else in the world. Very cool.
Yeah. No, I'm here. But yeah, so I might have to drink a lot of water while I'm doing this and need to wipe off my brow. Killing me here. It's already, the lights are making it worse.
Yeah, the lockdown in Puerto Rico. I know we have people watching from all around the world, but the lockdown in Puerto Rico is pretty intense.
Yeah. All right, so just let me know. And so I'm just talking for 15 minutes, that's it, and then stopping?
Yeah. We can start whenever you're ready. If you have slides, you can share them. It is being streamed
No,
live.
don't have any slides. Let's just let me try to set a timer so I have some idea. I mean, are you going to kind of interrupt me when it's kind of time to stop, or?
No, we're not gonna interrupt you. It's totally on you. Just watch the time. Try to be mindful of the time. But
Yeah, I'm just going to put like a little timer on. So I have my cell phone here.
perfect.
All right. So are you going to introduce me, or should I just start talking?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Peter Schiff is an entrepreneur and investor, and you moved to Puerto Rico. How long ago did you move down here to the island?
I moved here full time in January 2007 and 17, but I moved to business here in 2013, 2014. So.
And you moved the business down here, and then I think a lot of other people from your business also moved down here. I've
Correct. I have two businesses here now. Yeah.
Very cool. And yeah, so I wanted to bring on some of the voices from people that moved down here to Puerto Rico, so that you can share your story and obviously there's a lot of tensions and social unrest, and these are times that are very unknown. So if you want to maybe change your original talk to kind of incorporate the economic crisis that's overhand, that'd be amazing as well.
Well, I don't know that it's unique to, I don't know that that's unique to Puerto Rico, but are you recording this? Are we starting now, or?
Yeah, we're recording. So as soon as you start, like we'll cut this first part out. As soon as you start, then
Oh,
we're
okay.
good to
So
go.
then I
Just
can drop
mute
this
your-
from my ear. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to talk in general about the potential that Puerto Rico has, why it's such a great place.
Yeah,
But,
great. It's
yeah.
going.
All right.
Are you going to open your video, or are you having problems there?
No, I just have no air conditioning. That's about it. My only problem.
Okay. All
right.
Awesome. Well, Peter, thank you so much for being here.
Okay. Are you guys seeing me?
It looks like it's loading. Maybe give it a second.
Hello?
Yeah, we the video's not activated yet. It looks like it's
You're not
maybe
seeing
it's
me?
trying to. No, try turning the video off and turning it back on.
Paul, he says try turning it off and turning it back on. Are they on Zoom or Skype?
Zoom, and then we're also putting it out on YouTube. There's a private link. There's a private YouTube stream where it's going out. But we'll edit everything in the post-production.
Yeah.
But
I don't know why it's taken. What's the problem with the video? Oh,
yeah, for us, it's just blank. The video. Are you in like a studio? It sounds like you're in like a heavy-duty studio. You have like an
yeah,
AV team.
yeah. Well, I'm in my but
There we go. There we go. Now we can see you. That's perfect.
is there a problem with it?
No, we're good. Now we're good.
Oh, you can see me now?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Superman, if you want to stop sharing the
Hello?
slide. Yeah. Yeah, you're here. Perfect.
All right. So should I start talking?
Yeah, yeah, let's get into it. Why Puerto Rico
Okay,
is
great.
a
All right. But should I
Financial
introduce
paradise.
myself or is that already done?
yeah, sure. Go ahead, right ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. Okay. I'll start talking. All right. Hi, my name is Peter Schiff, and I'm Puerto Rican, and I've been living here in Puerto Rico for a little over 3 years full time with my wife and children. And I first was introduced to Puerto Rico back in 2013 when I moved my first business to Puerto Rico, Euro Pacific Asset Management. I had that company out in California. And I moved it to Puerto Rico. And, you know, at the time that I made that decision, I had already decided that I was going to move out of California. You know, the tax environment there was not very conducive to growing my business. So I was looking at places like Singapore and Ireland. And then I came across Puerto Rico. And it wasn't even on my radar. But then I learned some very interesting developments that happened in 2012 here in Puerto Rico. You see, Puerto Rico has a huge advantage for American citizens that American citizens living anywhere else in the world, including any of the 50 states, don't have. You see, Puerto Rico is not a state. It is a territory of the United States, but it is still the United States. And everybody who lives here is an American citizen. And any American citizen can move here. There's no restrictions on moving in and out of Puerto Rico. You don't need a passport to come here. It's just like traveling within the 50 states. But the territorial status comes with a huge benefit. And that is that Americans who choose to live in Puerto Rico, whether you were born here or whether you move here, you are not subject to the federal income tax, which I think is a huge advantage for everybody on this island. Because for most businesses, the federal income tax is probably their largest cost. I mean, depending on which state you live in, a lot of states add their own income tax to the federal income tax. So in many cases, entrepreneurs are splitting their profits with the government. The government's the partner, does none of the work, but gets half of the profits. But to the extent that somebody in Puerto Rico wants to start a business, right, they are going to be at a competitive advantage to people operating businesses in the United States, and not just in the United States, because the United States is unique in the world in that America taxes its citizens on the income that they earn, regardless of where in the world they earn it. That's not the case for other countries. If you're Japanese or you're German and you decide to move out of your home country and you move, let's say, to another jurisdiction that has more favorable tax policies, you're not subject to the local income taxes that you would have paid if you lived in Germany or Japan. You don't have to renounce your citizenship. You can maintain your citizenship, but you just adopt the lower tax structure of wherever you move. But that's not the case for Americans. If Americans move, as long as they're still US citizens, the IRS expects to get their cut. They still want you to pay taxes on the money you're earning, even though you're not earning any of it within the United States. The exception really is Puerto Rico. This is the only place that Americans can move to truly be free from the federal income tax. Now, up until recently, there wasn't that big an advantage of coming to Puerto Rico because Puerto Rico imposed its own income tax on its citizens that was almost as high, not quite as high, but almost as high as the federal income tax being imposed in the US. And so therefore, it was a small advantage, but not a big enough advantage to overcome a lot of the other problems here in Puerto Rico. And it certainly wasn't a big enough advantage to enable people to relocate from the 50 states to Puerto Rico, because the tax savings weren't going to be large enough to offset some of the other costs of relocating down here, and then some of the other costs in the island that might be a little higher. Well, Puerto Rico got smart in 2012, and they passed some laws that now enabled businesses to operate from Puerto Rico in a very, very competitive way. Basically, businesses now in Puerto Rico, if they apply for what used to be called Act 20, it's now part of a new Act 60, I believe, but when I first came here, it was Act 20. And companies that are organized under that act pay a 4% corporate income tax. That is it. Then they can pass on the profits to the business owner tax-free. So effectively, the marginal tax rate in Puerto Rico for people who are operating businesses, and of course, the business has to be exporting services. So it can't be like a local business where the customers are in Puerto Rico. The customers have to be outside of Puerto Rico. They can be anywhere in the world, anywhere in the 50 states or any country in the world. They just have to be outside of Puerto Rico. You could still have Puerto Rican customers, but now you're going to have to pay the Puerto Rican income tax on the income that you derive from that portion of your business. But for the portion of your revenues that are emanating from outside of Puerto Rico, you're just basically paying 4%. And that compares extremely favorably to the relative 50% marginal tax bracket that any successful business is subjected to in the United States. So effectively, by operating a business in Puerto Rico, whether you're starting one up or you're moving from the States, you really double your income. And that gives you an enormous advantage over everybody else. First of all, instead of giving half your income to the US government and your state government, you can take that income and invest it in growing your business. You can make capital investments that you might not otherwise have the resources to make. But because you're not giving so much money to the government, you have more money to invest in your business. But not only that, it gives you a competitive edge. Because if you think about it, for most successful businesses that generate profits, the income tax is really their biggest expense. And so without that expense, you can pass on some of the benefits to your customers. So you can charge lower prices than your competitors and still earn more money after tax, despite generating less revenue by undercutting your competition by providing your services at a lower cost, right? Which gives you an advantage. You can gain market share. But it's not just your customers. It's your employees who benefit. You see, the corporations that are structured here under the Act 20, they can compensate their employees partially through a dividend on stock, which is tax-free. So the compensation would be part wages, which would be subject to local income tax, not federal income tax, local income tax. And the rest of the compensation could be a tax-free dividend. So in other words, by taking advantage of that structure, businesses that are incorporated here actually have a competitive advantage in the labor market, because Puerto Rican businesses can pay workers less money than they would have to pay those workers if they employed them in any of the states, yet the workers will actually enjoy higher after-tax income despite a lower pre-tax pay. So that is a win-win for everybody. The business wins because it has lower labor costs, but the workers win because they have higher after-tax income, which means that companies who are competing with other companies for employees have a better advantage, a competitive advantage, because we from Puerto Rico, we can outbid the employers in the US for the same talent because we can offer them a more competitive after-tax compensation package. So this is a huge win for Puerto Rico. I mean, a lot of people think that maybe these tax incentives, they're only benefiting the business owners, the employers who directly benefit. But no, the entire island, everybody who lives in Puerto Rico benefits, whether directly or indirectly, from this tax advantage. Because the fact that Puerto Rico has such a tax advantage means that we're having a lot of businesses starting up in Puerto Rico that otherwise wouldn't be here. And the businesses that are starting up have an easier time succeeding and expanding than would otherwise be the case if they were subject to the same type of federal income tax that businesses in the 50 states are subject to. So as a result, there are more businesses providing more employment opportunities, and those businesses are competing with one another for the labor pool. And so wages are being bid up by these businesses that have more money to pay their workers because they're not sending it to Washington in taxes. So, this is an incredible opportunity for Puerto Rico. I am very, very optimistic on the future of Puerto Rico, given the unique status that it has and the fact that it's finally benefiting from the status. It's always amazed me that more people haven't already come. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of people that have already come. And it's surprising, too, that you still have some resentment here in Puerto Rico politically regarding the fact that there are so many people that have come here and that are paying lower taxes than some of the people who have lived here their whole lives, even though these tax benefits are not exclusive to people that move here. Anybody who incorporates an export service business can benefit from these tax advantages. I mean, the only tax advantages that are unique to people moving here is the fact that you have zero capital gains taxes on your personal investments. And that's another a great reason to be here. But I think the primary advantage is the lack of having to pay taxes on operating income, which makes you more competitive and frees up that money to invest in the business. But the fact that you have the political pressure on the fact that there are some people who are perceived to be paying low taxes, but that misses the larger point, is that the people that are here who are paying these low taxes are only here because of the tax environment. If the taxes were much higher, they would not come here. And in fact, when everybody comes to Puerto Rico, they get a contract where the Puerto Rican government guarantees that they won't raise their taxes until the year 2035, which is very important because people don't want to have to be worried that once they relocate here and start a business, that then the rules are going to be changed and all of a sudden they're going to have significant tax increases. So the fact that they have some certainty in their future tax liability, that allows a lot of businesses to come here. But even if you're paying 4% tax, the government is collecting 4%. 4% of something is a lot better than 30, 35% of nothing. And before I moved to Puerto Rico, personally, I moved here from Connecticut. I was thinking about moving to Florida. Florida has a zero state income tax. So had I moved to Florida, I would have paid no income taxes to Florida. I'm paying a 4% income tax to Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico is earning more from me in direct taxation than the state of Florida would have earned had I gone there. And certainly Florida is doing a lot to entice businesses to move to Florida, even though they collect zero personal income tax. The same thing with Texas, or the same thing in Nevada. But Puerto Rico does collect a 4% tax. So Puerto Rico does get that money. But in addition to the tax revenue that they're getting from me directly, which is substantial, even at 4%, look, I have a lot of employees, and a lot of those employees are being paid wages. Some of their compensation is dividends, which aren't taxed, but a lot of the compensation is salaries, wages and salaries, which are taxed. So that revenue is going to the Puerto Rican government. Since I've moved to Puerto Rico, I have a Puerto Rican lawyer. I have a Puerto Rican accountant. I patronize all sorts of businesses here in Puerto Rico. I've purchased properties in Puerto Rico. So I spend a lot of money in Puerto Rico that I otherwise would have spent outside of Puerto Rico. And the spending of that money is generating other taxable income. Not only is there a sales tax that Puerto Rico collects every time I buy something, but the people who are employed in the businesses who are selling me goods and services, they are generating higher incomes, which are also providing additional tax revenue to Puerto Rico. So this is a win-win, right? Despite some of the demagogues who might try to say, hey, you have some entrepreneurs, wealthier individuals who are coming here and who are paying low taxes, the fact that they're coming here is an incredible advantage for everybody in Puerto Rico because they're bringing their capital, they're bringing their talent, they're bringing their entrepreneurship, they're creating all sorts of opportunities in Puerto Rico that otherwise wouldn't exist. In fact, there are still a lot of people who have been leaving Puerto Rico because of the economy, because there wasn't enough opportunity. You see, the Puerto Rican government, right, is large, right? And so with the tax system that they had, without these tax incentives, there wasn't a lot of positive things happening in Puerto Rico. But now we've kind of reversed that flow. There are people that are now starting to come back to Puerto Rico as the opportunities here in Puerto Rico are improving. And I think if you look at if you survey the landscape in the US, the outlook for taxation in the United States is very, very high. Right? We have tremendous deficits in the US, and especially now, right? Given what's happened with coronavirus, government spending is exploding, and nobody is questioning how we're going to pay for all this, right? We are running up enormous debts, which every American who's living in the 50 states is subjected to. And I think once this virus passes, there is going to be a big price to pay for all of the government spending. And that is going to be not only in inflation, but in much higher rates of taxation for businesses, for corporations, for entrepreneurs. And that's only going to increase the competitive advantage that Puerto Rico has. Because for all the debt Puerto Rico has as a territory, Puerto Ricans are not responsible for their share of the national debt. Right? That responsibility falls on the American citizens who are living in the 50 states. They're on the hook for all these deficits. Puerto Rico escapes that because we're not paying the income tax to repay those debts, to service those debts. So I think the advantage that Puerto Rico has is going to significantly increase in the years ahead. And I think more and more businesses are going to relocate to Puerto Rico. And I think Puerto Rico is going to thrive. It's going to thrive not as a state, but as a territory. And rather than being the poorest state, we're going to be the wealthiest territory. We're going to be wealthier than any state. We're going to have a higher per capita income. Right now, the income in Puerto Rico is about half of what it is in the poorest state. I think in a decade, it could be twice what it is in the wealthiest state because we are going to create a lot more wealth in Puerto Rico. It doesn't even matter what the business is. All sorts of businesses can move here. I mean, I'm in financial services, but there's all sorts of businesses that can operate, especially now, with what's happening with all this social distancing and the coronavirus. More and more people are working from home and they're realizing that they don't have to go into the office, that they can still be productive working remotely. Well, if you're going to work remotely, you might as well work remotely from Puerto Rico. I mean, because you can still do everything. I mean, we have all that infrastructure. We have the internet. We have phones. So anything that you can do from your house in New York or Los Angeles or Chicago or Boston, you could do the same thing from Puerto Rico, except you can do it in an environment where you have beautiful weather. I mean, I love the lifestyle here in Puerto Rico. There are a lot of people who aren't coming down here because they think, yes, the tax climate is great, but I don't want to live in Puerto Rico, as if, living in Puerto Rico is like being in some kind of prison. I mean, I love the lifestyle down here. My family enjoys it. I think my wife says the best decision I ever made was moving to Puerto Rico. It's a very good quality of life here. I've met a lot of very interesting people, a lot of like-minded people. I think I already have a bigger social life and more friends here in Puerto Rico than I had in Connecticut before I moved down here. So I think as more and more people find out the truth about Puerto Rico and realize all the advantages that Puerto Rico has to offer, they're going to come down here. And I hope that Puerto Rico recognizes the value of what they have and exploit it to its fullest. And I think the best thing that the Puerto Rican government could do is to try to make this place as free market oriented as possible by reducing the size of the local government, by reducing the number of people working for government and freeing up those people to work productively in the private sector, there's going to be so many employment opportunities for them. Transitioning them to private productive employment will do nothing but benefit the island. There's a lot of things that the government does that could be privatized, that would be done more efficiently by the free market, and therefore Puerto Ricans would benefit by those efficiencies with lower prices. So basically, in conclusion, I think that this is the place. I mean, Puerto Rico is without a doubt the best place in the United States. Right? It's not a state, but it's the best place for Americans to live. And if you're already living here, you're lucky to be here. But if you don't live here, you still have the opportunity to come here and to take advantage of all of the opportunities that the island has to offer. And in the process, you'll be benefiting everybody who already lives here because you're employing Puerto Rican labor. You'll be donating to Puerto Rican charities that you never even knew existed. And you have a lot more money to donate to charity because you're not paying income taxes. You have a lot more money to do a lot of things that you probably can't do because you're struggling to pay high income taxes in the States that are only going to get higher. And if you come to Puerto Rico, you'll be free. I mean, some people try to claim that Puerto Ricans are second-class citizens. I don't feel like a second-class citizen at all. I feel like a first-class citizen. I felt like a second-class citizen when I was paying the income tax and the government was taking half of what I earned. Now that I'm free and I get to keep most of what I earn, now I feel like I'm a true American. How much time is that? I went long? Couldn't tell.
That was perfect. That was perfect.
All right. Just try to wipe, if you can cut out when I had to wipe my sweat.
Yeah. We'll chop it up in post-production. Yeah, man, you're really passionate about Puerto Rico. Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, it's great. I'd say more people have moved here because of me than anybody else.
Yeah, no, and I love.
Well, I talked about it on the Joe Rogan show several times, and a lot of people are here from that because he's got a big audience. And then I've been, talking about it on my podcast for years.
Mm-hmm. No, it's incredible. And like you said, it's more money for philanthropy. It's more money that goes into the economy. Like you hit it out of the park, my friend. And thank you for sharing that much needed perspective. I think there's a lot of. Sometimes the negative voices are louder than the positive ones, unfortunately. And there's a lot of xenophobia.
Yeah, I try not to talk too much because my wife doesn't want me, because I got in trouble at the last conference because I talked about how the statehood movement was really misguided because it would take away our advantage. So I didn't really want to bring that up specifically, even though obviously, because there are people like, there's such a big movement here for statehood, and it's just the stupidest thing because then we throw away that advantage, and what do we got?
Well, yeah, I think, maybe they've never lived in the States, right? Like we've lived in the States and we know that it's not necessarily better. There's more government intervention. There's a bigger police state. There's less freedoms, unfortunately. So we're kind of in
But hopefully they can just read between the lines and realize, we're a territory. We're not paying the income tax. I mean, come on. I mean, what? All right.
Incredible.
Light up, Paul.
Well, thank you so much again.
You guys there? Hello? All right. Did I lose him? You still there?
Yeah, we're still here, my friend.
No, I'm not hearing him.
But thank you so much again.
Okay. Hello?
Yeah, Peter. Thank you so much again.
Hello? Hello?
All right. Peter is usually on CNN a lot, so he has like a professional studio. I think this is the first time he called into a Zoom. He's usually dialing into like CNN and Fox News and all these big TV channels. So I'm really gracious that he decided to be a part of this and share his experiences with us. All right, Superman, who's next, my friend?
Let's get some claps in here. That was amazing.
I think you're not sharing the audio. I think you might have been pressing the claps, but I haven't heard them. So maybe reshare your audio, make sure.
Let me.
And Michael is up next.
Okay, I think we should be good now. Let's Give it
There
up for
we
him.
go.
All right.
Okay, can you hear
Awesome.
me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so my challenge here is that you can probably see me if I go and start the video here as well.
There we go. Perfect.
I'm in Myanmar. You can see the blue skies behind me there. The issue is that on this particular device, I can't play my slides. So I'm going to go and take the video off and see if I can then upload the video from my PC. So let me stop this here. And I'm now logged in here. And I'm not seeing the same thing. Okay, you can still hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you perfect.
Okay, so I'm going to go into share. And okay, if I can share a PowerPoint, that would be great.
I think
Are you
it's
seeing the
doing
PowerPoint?
it. Yeah, give it a second. Yep, there we go. We have it, my friend.
Okay, great. Because it wasn't going to work on the other device. Perfect. All right, I just have to make it full screen.
Yeah, so you could probably do video on one device and the PowerPoint on the other. If you just want to go straight.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, and can you hear me fine, or should I put my headset on for the?
No, it sounds good. Sounds perfect.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Well, I'm glad we were able to. Whoops. Why are you not seeing the full screen that I'm seeing here? I see a full screen on my screen here. Do you see a full screen?
No, I went back to the slide view.
You know, let me see if I can close this one off. Okay, so now you just have one. And I'm seeing the full enchilada here. Are you still seeing the other one?
Yeah, it looks like it might be frozen. Try Xing out of the full screen. You can just do it with the slides around it. We can always crop it later. Hey, Mike, are you still with us, or did we lose you?
Okay, I think we lost a second device where his audio was coming
Okay, I'm back. I
Okay,
was
there
trying
we
to
go.
improve it, and I made it worse. Okay, so we're gonna go with it the way that it is right here, even though you're not getting the same effect that I am. Okay. Okay, so great. All right. So again, my name is Michael Turpin. I'm I guess I'll do the self intro like Peter did. And we are going to be talking about Puerto Rico and it being the port of innovation. And you can hear me now, right?
Yeah, we can hear you perfect.
Okay, fantastic. So again, my name is Michael Turpin. I'm probably best known as the first person to move to Puerto Rico from the mainland from the blockchain community. Peter Schiff probably has brought more people down than anybody, but I've brought down quite a few between me and Brock Pierce, who will be speaking later. I think we brought down about 300 people from the blockchain community for the same reasons of the capital gains and the ability to have a 4% business and all the things that Peter talked about. But I'm going to talk about Puerto Rico and not what Puerto Rico can do for us, but what we could do for Puerto Rico. I've got I'm going to start actually with another John F. Kennedy quote. Whoops. So the Chinese use two brushstrokes to write the word crisis. One brushstroke stands for danger, the other for opportunity. In a crisis, be aware of the danger, but recognize the opportunity. And I think that's where we're at right now. And are you seeing this, or do you see the second slide? Just not
No,
showing
it's
up on-
it's still stuck on the first one there. Hit escape and like try to back out of it there.
Okay, I'm going to simply, because you're not seeing the full one, I'm going to just simply do this. And I'm going to also turn off my video, so you don't see me staring at the at the other computer with the sky in the background. Okay.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. Okay. Great. So, again, we are in this crisis right now. I think I moved here at the start of 2016, and it seems like Puerto Rico has always been in a crisis. I think 2016 was the only year that we didn't have FEMA declare an emergency, and we were just getting over, Maria when obviously the civil unrest hit last year. I was very proud of Puerto Rico being able to sort of have nonviolent change of the governor's office and really show what it's like to be an American and to follow the Constitution. And then we had the earthquake, and then all of a sudden the world had the coronavirus. And I think that we've been actually a world leader for being really the first. They always get it wrong on CNN and say San Francisco is the first, but we were the first to go into lockdown, and I think that that's really helped here. So overall, when we do get past this, the first things that I saw when I came down to Puerto Rico in early 2016 in Spanish were the word Puerto Rico and the Isla del Encanto, which is on every license plate. So obviously the island of enchantment is what you really see with the beauty all around you. But more importantly, we are the rich port. We are this port in the midst of the Caribbean, in the midst of the Americas, that has so much opportunity, has so much history. And we need to sort of look back at the past, and we need to go and see what we've learned and what we've accomplished all together to be able to make a greater future. And I do agree with Peter Schiff that we can be richer than any of the states if we follow the models of Hong Kong and Singapore, both of whom, when they were figuring out how to do things right their way, in particular Singapore, Eduardo Batia, who's running, of course, for governor. I was at one of his events a couple of weeks ago when we were allowed to have events. He noted in the 1960s, people in Singapore came to Puerto Rico to find out how to do things, how we had been able to go and create a great economy when the aerospace technologies were beginning to double the income and the lifestyle opportunities down here, and then pharmaceutical made it even better. And then somewhere along the way, we sort of lost our way and just started taking debts. And I think that Act 60, which combines 20 and 22 and all the other ones, is a really good chance for us to work with the people who've been here for generations together, hand in hand, and be able to really build this rich port, not just for the Caribbean, not just for nearby islands, but for all of the Americas. So again, port is in our name. We have a great airport. In fact, we have a couple of them. San Juan should really be, so these things, we're supposed to go and flop up one bullet at a time, but you can get the idea. San Juan should be a hub of Caribbean air traffic. I didn't realize until Alberto Bacco told me a few years ago that when they were trying to figure out where to put American Airlines hub for the entire eastern, southeastern part of the United States, it was between Miami and San Juan. And boy, what would that have done to the San Juan economy? You can see what it's done to creating Miami as the place where you have to fly through to go everywhere. And in many cases, it's ridiculous. You have to go and fly through Miami to go in the Caribbean south of here to Barbados. And so I believe there's some great opportunities if we can go and work with just one of the major airlines and say, put your hub in San Juan, and you'll be able to go and have all these inexpensive flights to every place that right now you can't get to without having to go through Miami. And Roosevelt Roads in particular, and that's what the picture is there, has a tremendous opportunity to be able to do cargo, to be able to be a special economic zone. So the special economic zones, the autonomous states like Hong Kong, there's a number of different ways to do it. I've been talking for years. This came out of the very first Coin Agenda conference, Coin Agenda Caribbean conference in early 2017. We'd sort of open sourced an idea about how instead of selling off, they go in and make it an autonomous zone that was able to issue its own currency and be able to pay off the debt for its freedom as an autonomous zone, just as Hong Kong has its own currency, even though it's got very extremely strong ties as part of China. So there are a lot of creativity. There's a lot of creativity to go and figure out what is best for the people who want independence, keep it Puerto Rico territory, and the ones who simply want to get out of the debt. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity to become, again, the Singapore, the Hong Kong of the Caribbean. And what do both of those places have, Hong Kong and Singapore? They have great ports and they have great airports. And Roosevelt Roads, the airstrip is actually bigger than San Juan International. So we also have a lot of seaports. The Jones Act really has to be repealed. I mean, it was repealed for a whole 9 days during Maria, and then President Trump said it had to be brought back to protect American jobs and to keep sailors employed during times of warfare. When was the last time that there was a naval battle in the Atlantic? More than 50 years ago. We're going back to President Kennedy again. The Bay of Pigs was the last time that we really needed to go. And we have a very strong military. We have a very strong, group that we can call up just in case there's a naval battle in the Atlantic, which is not how wars are fought these days. But there's no reason that we need to, have to go in and tax. Through the Defense Act, through the Defense Department, to basically make sure that that everything gets unloaded in Miami before it comes back. That there would be such a great increase in things that could come from South America to here, including oil. You look at Singapore, and Singapore is just got tankers and tankers and tankers of oil just sitting offshore in storage, waiting to go from the port. That's one of the things that could happen here, again, especially with this special economic zone. And we need to modernize tariffs. That is not something that is helping the recovery if somebody comes in here and they have to spend 30% that they don't have to do in any other state to be able to move some things down. So again, all leading us to the prospect of being a Singapore of the Americas, to be able to create special economic zones, to be able to add and streamline new programs, and again, a 21st century Singapore. It can be a Singapore of the Green New Deal. It can be a Singapore of cloud computing. It can be a Singapore of blockchain. Singapore is the Singapore of blockchain in Asia. Just think of all of the special economic zones that create great wealth for their citizens in Europe and in Asia and in the Middle East, Dubai, Singapore, Liechtenstein. Really, there isn't anything in North America other than perhaps Bermuda. I think that Puerto Rico is located as gateway to America, from part of America to the rest of North, South, Central America, and the Caribbean. We could also become the capital of cloud computing. was able to go and start that. Let's see if I can somehow make the screen a little bit bigger. I probably should mess with it at this point. Okay. Microsoft has been here for quite a while, and they're part of the same program that pays the 4% tax, and they do that because they create the keys to Microsoft Office 365 here in Puerto Rico, in Humacao. They have hundreds of employees on the east side of the island, and then they ship them out to the rest of the mainland, to Canada, to Central America, to South America. The entire Western Hemisphere has their Microsoft cloud software created here and shipped elsewhere. We can do that for Google. We can do that for Amazon. We can do that for Facebook. Now, we're not going to be a good place for shipping products for Amazon, but we could sure be a good place for Amazon Web Services, and think of all the money that they would save, and think of all the jobs that would be created here. And that's because of Act 60 and because of our talent. Because you can't just go and drop an Act 60 in a place like Chernobyl. People aren't going to go there, and it's not a conducive lifestyle. It's not conducive people, and it's not conducive talent. We have all of that. And for the same reasons that we can go in and do this with cloud computing, we can do this with blockchain. Blockchain in the regulations here is really classified as a form of software as a service. And so just the same way that Microsoft and others will export keys for their software to unlock the cloud access, we can do that with private, public, and permission blockchains. And IBM, Microsoft, again, very large providers, Deloitte, that have their own private and permission blockchains that are already bringing in tens of millions of dollars of revenue per month. This could go through Puerto Rico, as well as we can become a better Wyoming. And it's no secret that there's been talk on the island about how can we go and do something like Wyoming, to be able to go and let entrepreneurs who are largely shut out of the U.S. market, other than Wyoming, and then they still have to pay federal tax, 21% for all the tokens that they create. Here would be 4%, so you would have truly a better Wyoming. And if you, as much as I love Caitlin Long, who really single-handedly got the laws changed there and has brought a lot of business to Wyoming. If you give me a choice of living in Cheyenne or San Juan, I'm picking San Juan. So talent, capital, and good jobs will flood in. We can go in and really continue to promote blockchain and to change a few little laws to be able to really make us the better Wyoming. And then, of course, how could I not mention pharma with what's going on here? The supply chain, as we see, is broken in the world. We're in crisis and about to get worse because we can't get things that we thought we'd be able to get very easily because we outsource them to other countries. We're the ultimate near sourcing. We are near every place in the United States. The airports go to every major city in America. We are American, and yet we have tax advantages. And we had even better tax advantages for the pharma industry itself, and we need to bring those back. If we restore and expand those programs, we will be able to have enough medicine, enough supplies, enough other pharma. We are, last I checked, the 7th largest producer in the world if we were a separate nation of pharmaceuticals. And all the big companies are already here, and there's also a real thriving entrepreneurial medical community here. And this will also create a wave of high-paying jobs on the island if we can bring back and expand some of those programs that were so successful in the 1980s and 90s through the early 2000s. And I'm going to leave with another quote. This one is attributed to Albert Einstein. It's actually only found in Spanish, so it's believed that he did this as a quote to a Spanish publication. And I'm taking what I believe is the best translation. He who overcomes crisis overcomes himself without getting overcome. He who blames his failure to a crisis neglects his own talent and is more interested in problems than in solutions. Incompetence is the true crisis. The greatest inconvenience of people and nations is the laziness with which they attempt to find the solutions to their problems. There is no challenge without a crisis. Without challenges, life becomes routine, a slow agony. There's no merit without crisis. It's in crisis where we can show the very best in us. Without a crisis, any wind becomes a tender touch. To speak about a crisis is to promote it. Not to speak about it is to exalt conformism. Let us work hard instead. Let us stop once and for all the menacing crisis that represents the tragedy of not being willing to overcome it. So again, let's all work hard to overcome our current crisis. I know all of you are. And this is how you get a hold of me. That's my rooftop view of Condado, where you'll see the building includes where we were supposed to be in Condado Beach. And I live in Miramar. And if you can see closely, there's a rainbow. There are so many rainbows. I've seen more rainbows living in Puerto Rico than any other place I've ever visited. And I look forward to seeing many more rainbows with all my friends in Puerto Rico. And for everybody listening who has not been here, please come down. For everybody in the community, thank you for listening to some of my ideas.
Awesome, amazing. Michael Turpin, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing with us. It has been amazing and has opened up a lot of information about Puerto Rico in general for everyone who's looking to move down, and they definitely should. So thank you for sharing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. We are back on, and as always, we want to thank all of our speakers for all the amazing things. Perfect. So as we ready up our next guest, as we make sure that we have the right participant, perfect. Not participant, but speaker. Okay, I think we are ready. And our next speaker for this TEDx Condado will be Raul Villasis. And hopefully, Raul, we have you on board.
Oh, do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Hello? Okay, hold on. I think there's an echo. Jake, will you check on this? Okay, hold on. How about now?
Perfect. Sounds good. No echo.
Are we live?
Yes, we are live. Let me see if you can share your screen. There we go.
Okay, ready when you guys
Thank
are.
you thank you. Yeah, we're ready. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for joining us in these crazy times, my friend.
Excellent. Appreciate it. I appreciate it. So I wanna share a couple of things today, and because right now we're in the middle of the crisis, because right now we're in the middle of this pandemic, I believe that we could learn a lot from Puerto Rico. I think that Puerto Rican people have gone through similar situations. They've gone through tornadoes, they've gone through hurricanes, they've gone through a lot of catastrophes. So I want to share with you some of the things that I'm teaching my clients right now, how to overcome this pandemic, how to overcome the mindset that we need to have in order for us to be able to take advantage of the current situation, at the same time help. So the one thing is that we have to understand that everything is energy and information. Like absolutely everything is energy and information. And your mind is constantly consuming information. Your mind is constantly consuming energy and consuming information about what you're watching, consuming information about the things that you're feeling. And the moment that you realize that your mind creates a meaning based on everything that you do, then you're actually going to start realizing that you have control of the energy that you put behind the information that you're gathering, that you actually have control behind everything that's going on right now in your life. And because we are in the middle of this crisis, because we're in the middle of this pandemic, we need to be more mindful than ever in the energy that we exude, because it all comes down to the sources that you're consuming the energy from. If you're consuming information from the news, and you put the energy behind that information, the source, then you're being programmed every single day. If you're consuming information from other sources, you're going to be programmed by that information. And your job is to be able to discern that information and ask yourself, is this information conscious or unconscious? Because unconscious focused energy will create chaos. Unconscious focused energy will always give you fear, will always give you anxiety, will always give you guilt, will always give you shame. And we have to be conscious about the energy that we're consuming. The moment that you're conscious about the focus that you're putting on, that's the moment that you're expanding based on the information and the energy. That's the moment that you actually become more in control of what you're consuming. See, every time that you're expanding, every time that you're conscious about the things you're consuming, you have calm, you have creativity, you have certainty, and you have clarity. And the moment that we have to understand that there's two choices right now: the choice of you consuming unconscious information or information based on fear, or the choice of consuming conscious information that are going to give you the opportunity for you to expand and be able to act, not react. Because who you become in the middle of this crisis, who you become in the middle of this storm, it's what's going to determine your destiny. Because right now, what you need to do is you need to become a master at receiving feedback. Everything is feedback. Information is feedback. Energy is feedback. I know sometimes we call this feedback challenges. We think that every single situation, every feedback that life gives us is a challenge, but life is constantly giving you exactly what you need for you to grow. Life is giving you the obstacles. Life is giving you the challenges. Life is just giving you feedback. And how we react to that feedback is going to determine the choices that we make on a daily basis. I want to give you 5 steps in order for you to receive better feedback. Number 1 is understand that you need to have this belief that life is always going to give you what you need to grow. That right now, there's an internal game. That you need to understand that the feedback that we get, the information that life is giving us right now is created for you to grow, is destined for you to expand. And the moment that you think that life is happening to you, instead of life is happening for you, you become a victim. So the moment that you start complaining about it shouldn't happen, or this shouldn't happen to me, or why is this happening to me, you become a victim mentality. You start consuming that information and becoming a victim. So we need to start programming ourselves to realize that life is always giving us exactly what we need to grow and expand. Number 2 is, right now in this crisis, I know a lot of you guys are worried about your business. You are worried about what you're going to do next. But how you make your money is more important than how much money you make. Right now, the focus should be of taking advantage of the opportunity, not taking advantage of people. Right now, we should be thinking about how can we serve instead of how can we sell more. At this moment, you have to become more conscious about the input and the information that you're putting out there, the energy you're giving out to people right now, because the moment that you focus on serving, that's the moment that you're going to create opportunities, because money is just an exchange of value. An impact over income will always determine your legacy. I know a lot of you guys, just like me, we've been hit with our businesses. Now it's time for us to start thinking outside the box and asking ourselves, how can we serve our clients better? How can we serve our community better? How can we serve the people that need it the most? Because impact over income will always win. The third is opportunities never come with a big sign. I know right now it seems like maybe the opportunities are not here. Maybe right now it seems like this chaos, but I guarantee you that in a moment of crisis, there's always opportunities. But we have to look for them. We have to become a hunter, a treasure hunter, looking for the opportunities every single day, looking to see how can we add more value, because money is just an exchange of value. And right now we're getting a lot of feedback. Life is giving us exactly what we need for us to grow. So we need to understand that right now is growth time. Right now is the moment that you start looking within yourself and asking yourself those deep questions in order for you to look for the opportunity and find those opportunities. Number 4 is life doesn't care about what you want. Life only cares about what you're committed to do. And right now we need to focus on the commitment. Are you committed to expand? Are you committed to lead? Or are you committed to complain and to live on fear? Because right now is a moment of that we're being challenged. Right now, leaders are being called to step up their game. Right now, it's not a time for us to complain. Right now, it's not a time to blame. Right now, it's not a time for us to look at the fear. Right now, it's time for us to lead. But in order for us to lead, we have to be committed. And it takes a daily habit for us to be committed to lead. Remember, when the most important question that you need to ask yourself is, are you creating excuses or are you focusing on the why? Because the moment that right now you hit with adversity, the moment that you get punched in the face, there's so many excuses that show up right now. There's so many excuses that you could have right now. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. All the world is becoming to chaos. Or are you committed to the reason why? Why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Why do you want to lead? Why do you want to expand? Because the moment that you focus on the why, especially now, focus on why you do what you do, it's what's going to help you shift the mindset. And number 5 is, it's not about what you could accomplish, but who you're becoming. It's who you become in this crisis that's the most important. It's not the destination that matters, it's who you become in the process. I know right now it may look like we're going through a lot of stuff. It may look like your business is hurting. It may look like this pandemic is ruining the world. But the reality is that 10 years from now, you're going to look back at this moment and it's going to be a decisive moment for you. The moment that you're committed to greatness, the moment that you're committed to level up, the moment that you're committed to lead, not just to follow. Because life is just energy, information, and feedback. And the moment that we become a masters of consuming the information that serves us, the moment that we start looking at the energy and focusing our energy towards something that's going to expand us, and the moment that we actually take that feedback and we use that feedback towards our advantage, that's the moment that we're committed to mastery. Because what you do with this feedback is your choice. What you do with this information is your choice. What you do with this energy is your choice. Don't discount the opportunity that you have right now to lead. Don't discount the fact that right now you're in a crucial moment in time when people are going to remember how you showed up. Your community, your family, your business needs you to start taking this feedback, and instead of looking at the worst case scenario, asking yourself, where is the opportunity? What can I do today to get closer to my ultimate image? What can I do today in order for me to look for the opportunity, to become a treasure hunter? Am I becoming a victim out of the situation, or am I becoming a leader out of the situation? Am I looking for somebody to save me, or am I looking for me to lead people out of this darkness? Because right now, this pandemic is exposing a lot of us. It's exposing our weakness. It's exposing our priorities. It's exposing our values. I want to make sure that every single day we are present to that gift. Because that's right, we've been receiving a gift right now. A gift for us to look deep inside ourselves and ask ourselves, why are we doing what we're doing right now? When the storm clears or when this is all over, are you going to be remembered by the guy or the woman who was leading by example? Or are you going to be remembered by the one that wasted time, wasted the gift by just complaining and reacting? Because at the end of the day, it's who you become in this journey that matters. How you showing up in the middle of the storm that matters. What's the energy that you're exuding? What's the vibration that you're creating? Are you looking at the worst case scenario, or are you adapting, adjusting your plan, adjusting your execution in order for you to go to the next level? Because fear is the virus. Fear is what's spreading right now. Anxiety and fear is what's killing every single one of us. And it will continue to kill every single one of us until we're committed to master this. Because right now, it may look like you're going through a hard time. It may look like the pandemic is taking over. But the truth is that this is shaping you. This is molding you. This is making you stronger. And you have a choice. You have a choice today to commit to be a leader, or you have a choice today to be like everyone else and react like fear. And every single one of you, if you're an entrepreneur, you've been created to lead. That was the best time in the world for us to show up. Not just to show up because we want to make more money, not just show up because we want to take advantage of the situation, showing up to lead, showing up by example, showing up that even though there may be uncertainty, even though you may have fear, do not live on fear. Create that faith-based belief system that you need every single day in order for you to know that the best is yet to come. One of the main things that I learned working with some Navy SEALs is that in order for them to overcome their obstacles, in order for them to go through what they go through, they have to remind themselves that always things could be worse. And right now, there are people dying. Right now, there are people that have lost everything. And even if you have lost everything, even if you are sick, because my wife and I, we've been sick for the last 2 weeks. Today is the first day that I actually am back with my energy. For the past 2 weeks, I've been in bed. I've been with a high fever. But I reminded myself every single day that it could be worse. There's people out there that have it worse than me. There's people out there that are dying. And if you're not dying right now, and if you're healthy and you could breathe, then you have to lead. You have the responsibility to show your kids, to show your family, to show your employees, your community, your customers, that you will not live in fear, that you continue to expand, that you continue to look forward, because that's what we're made of. Every single leader, every single entrepreneur, every single man and woman that had a vision, had a dream, that had the desire, that had the courage to one day said, I'm going to create something. Right now, you're being tested. Right now, you're being called. And we have to remember that we signed up for this. We signed up to be leaders. We made the choice to create. And we've come way too far to go backwards. We've come way too far to doubt. Never doubt that right now you're being shaped. Never doubt that right now you've been conditioned. You've been given a gift for you to expose your weakness, to expose your truth. Ask yourself, how am I receiving this feedback? Am I receiving this feedback as a curse, or am I seeing this as a gift? Am I consuming information unconsciously, or am I being conscious about the things that I'm putting my energy behind? Am I creating opportunities, seeking opportunities, or am I complaining about the things I don't have? Am I being a blessing, or am I being the curse to other people? And my heart goes out to every single family out there that is suffering through this pandemic. But I know that the answer to this is continue to work in the inner world, mastering that inner world, so the outside world will be a reflection of who you are on the inside. Because who you become in this crisis, who you become in this moment, is going to shape your destiny. And every single day, the biggest gift that we have is the power of choice. And God and the universe are molding you, are shaping you, are giving you exactly what you need, and they will never give you more than you could handle. And you have to believe with every single cell in your body that the best is yet to come. That right now you're being exposed on why you do what you do. Asking yourself those deep questions and focusing on the why, focusing on the purpose, focusing on your integrity, focusing on why you want to lead. We have a long list that we could all complain about. We have a long list of people that we could blame. But the truth is that there's zero upside on blaming, complaining, and pointing the finger. All the upside and all the advantage that you have right now is focusing on you and looking at yourself in the mirror and asking yourself, how am I leading through this pandemic? How am I leading through this challenge? How am I showing up in the moment of truth? Because that's what leaders do. And my intention is for every single one of you that's listening to this to know that the government is not going to save you. That people are not going to save you. It's up to us to create our own opportunities. It's up to us to lead the way. Entrepreneurs will continue to rise up in this country and in this world. Entrepreneurship is the key for us to raise our level of consciousness, to become better leaders, to become the example to the next generation. So when the books write about this moment in history, is your name going to be represented there as somebody that led or somebody that ran away? And that's the choice that we have to make every single day. But the choice is yours. And this moment is when humanity has been called to raise our level of consciousness, to make the choice and lead. Because every single day, you're going to be exposed. Every single day, you're going to be challenged. And it's going to get harder before it gets easier. But nothing lasts forever. And I guarantee you, a year, 2 years, a decade from now, you're going to be looking back at this moment in history. And you're going to be glad that you're able to listen to the voice inside your soul that told you to keep on going. Don't quit. You have a purpose. Your message matters. Your vision matters. God, the universe will never give you more than you could handle, and they will never give you a dream that you cannot make it into reality. So hold on to that vision. Hold on to that energy. Focus on that why and keep moving forward, because the best is yet to come. Learn it, live it, experience it. Love life. All right. Is that a wrap? Or do you want me to keep going? I don't have a timer here, so I don't know if I have more time. I could continue to go.
Bro, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Awesome, brother. I don't know how long that was. I had my timer here and it went out. So
Everyone's in the chat. They're saying it's amazing, wonderful message. Like everyone loved it, man. Thank you so much for sharing.
awesome, brother. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me, man. Thank you for having me.
All right. Perfect. Yeah, that was, amazing message that Ro shared with us. And I think connected with everyone else's presentations, it's like everything together is just snowballing and letting us know like what we really need to be focused on in 2020 amidst everything that's been going on. So thank you definitely so much for sharing, and I hope all the listeners are getting great value from this. Continue to leave messages in the chat so we know that you're engaged and we know that you are receiving all the great information that all these speakers have been sharing with us. And don't forget to also continue to tag us on Instagram at TEDx Condado so that we can see you and that we know that you are also listening in live to these presentations.
Super cool. So our next guest, so if you go ahead and switch the slide, Manny, he was not, he's a last minute guest. This is our surprise guest. I was putting out a lot of messages saying we have a surprise guest. So that's why his headshot doesn't look like everyone else's. We were really, really gracious to get him, in these times of uncertainty in this political climate, this health crisis that we're going through. I wanted to get someone to share a unique perspective. So John Perkins, he is the author, the best-selling author of Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And he tells the story of government, corruption, economic unrest throughout the third world, throughout Latin America, colonialization. And, you know, here in Puerto Rico, there's a lot of talk of colonialization. There's a lot of talk of those things. So I wanted to invite him to speak not only about the economic climate and social political climate now with these lockdowns and all these things, but also what's going on in Latin America and what's going on in the Caribbean. So super excited to welcome John Perkins. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, it's great to be with you. Thank you so much for having me on this show. It's been fun listening to the other speakers. And, you know, I was particularly interested in the Einstein quote of the two speakers ago. Einstein's really saying, you know, and the last speaker also emphasized this, that our perceptions mold reality. You know, there really is no Puerto Rico. There's an island, but there's no Puerto Rico. There's no United States. There's no Russia. There are no corporations. There's no religion. There's no culture, except as we perceive it. And when enough people accept a perception or codify it into law, it has a huge impact on reality. And I write a lot about in books, including my upcoming book, which is available now to pre-order, Touching the Jaguar, Transforming Fear into Action to Change Your Life in the World, which goes along with what we've been hearing from a number of speakers today. Transforming fear into action to change your life in the world. It's about perception. And if we look at what's going on today, the coronavirus, climate change, species extinctions, all the once in 100 year events that have been hitting Puerto Rico frequently, the earthquakes, the hurricanes, and so on, and hitting the entire world actually, all of these are just symptoms. They're not really the problem, they're symptoms of the problem, which is what a lot of economists today are referring to as a death economy. An economic system that is in essence consuming itself into extinction, that's using up the very resources upon which it depends. In a way, I think Puerto Rico is, let's say, like a canary in the cage. You're still very dependent on fossil fuels for your energy. And I know a lot of your, you know, it's a very small percentage that's solar or wind or renewable, and they get hit pretty hard in the last hurricane. But this dependence on fossil fuels that's in the whole world, and again, Puerto Rico is kind of a microcosm, it just can't last. We can't go on with that. The atmosphere can't take it. There's not enough oil and there's not enough fossil fuels, and it's destroying our ways of life. We could say the same about so many of our issues. We are globalized, and yet we're globalized into this death economy. And it's really an economic system that's defines itself as having its goal of maximizing short-term profits for a few individuals, basically, regardless of the social and environmental costs. And it really reared its ugly head in 1976 when Milton Friedman won the Nobel Prize in economics, and he said that the only responsibility of business is to maximize short-term profits, regardless of the social and environmental costs. That idea had been growing. He wasn't the first to say it by any means, but he had a huge impact on the entire world. Ronald Reagan bought into that idea. Margaret Thatcher, people around the world, and corporate executives everywhere realized that it was their responsibility, even their mandate, to do whatever it takes to maximize short-term profits. And that's a disastrous philosophy. We've experienced it. Puerto Rico has really experienced what it's like when a country is dependent on those kinds of resources, and when a country is failed by the systems in place. The administration in the United States really has failed Puerto Rico, as you're very aware, and now it's failed all of us. The response of our government, our national government, has been abysmal to this coronavirus. And local states and governments have done a very good job in many places. But this is all a warning. This economic system is no longer viable. So we must move into what's called the life economy. And this is an economic system that pays people to clean up pollution. like pays companies that currently are making war machines, like General Dynamics, Raytheon, to instead make equipment to clean up the plastic that's floating around in the oceans, around the Caribbean, to regenerate destroyed environments, pays people to do this, to create new technologies. So solar and wind, as it is right now, is very, very vulnerable to hurricanes, as you've discovered in Puerto Rico, but it doesn't need to be. That can change. All it takes is some ingenuity to really move in the direction of creating this life economy, an economic system that is itself a renewable resource. And incidentally, we humans have experienced that most of the 250,000 years we've been humans on this planet. And a lot of indigenous people still live that way, life economies. It's only been within the last several hundred years, really. And in fact, since World War II, that we've really moved in. And since 1976, when the Nobel Prize in Literature in economics was won by Milton Friedman, that we've really funneled big time into this. So for a long time, I've heard people ask me when I give a talk on this sort of thing, and I say, well, all we got to do is change the perception to move into a life economy. It's that idea of molding reality through perception. Change that perception of maximizing short-term profits to maximizing long-term benefits for everyone, including for the planet. Creating systems, governmental, social, economic systems that honor life, that regenerate destroyed environments, that clean up pollution, that recycle, that create new technologies that don't destroy the earth in the process, that regenerate the earth. And I think Puerto Rico has an opportunity to be a leader in that regard. It's going to take a big effort, moving off that incredible dependence you have on fossil fuels and looking at new ways to create energy that are not vulnerable to earthquakes so much. I was in Aruba recently, and they've come up with a system whereby they can generate electricity during the day with solar or wind, and then store it in this big metal balloon, essentially, under the ocean. And the pressure from the ocean then at night, when there is no solar, pushes the air that they've stored in there up through generators that produce electricity. That's just one of many innovations that are possible. I'd like to see Puerto Rico take a leadership role in that. I think it's already, what we've seen is that Puerto Rico has been, in fact, a canary in the cage. Maria taught Puerto Ricans, and should have shown all the rest of us, that the federal system is failing us at times of crises. It certainly failed Puerto Rico, and it's been failing all of us. As I spent a lot of time in Latin America, yo hablo español, I speak Spanish fluently, and I've spent a lot of time in Latin America, and I see more and more, and this includes in the Caribbean, countries turning to China for aid, for technology, because China today is the leader in alternative energy technologies and in electric cars and so on and so forth. And I hear my friends who are in leadership roles in places like Colombia and Ecuador and Guatemala and so many other countries, they'll say, well, we don't want to take money from the United States anymore, the World Bank, which is controlled by the United States, because you've shown us that you'll screw us, that you'll rob our resources, and you'll locate military bases on our soil, and you'll force us to vote with you against whatever you want to vote against in the United Nations, or for whatever you want to vote for. And you've actually assassinated some of our presidents, overthrown them in coups. China hasn't done that. And I say, well, don't you think they will? And the answer always is, well, maybe, but they haven't proven it yet. The United States has. And I think that's an incredible harbinger here. I keep talking about these things because I really, really feel that we in the United States need to understand that. I think it's a terrible shame that when we became the sole world leader after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, rather than really showing the world how true democracy and a real form of capitalism, as opposed to this predatory capitalism we have today, what we failed to show the world that those things could work. Instead, we exploited people around the world. I think that's a terrible shame. I want to see that change. And I'd like to see Puerto Rico take a very strong leading role in that. As Raul just said, you know, it's up to each of us as individuals to be leaders. It's terribly important to feel that. So this book it's come that you can order now online at johnperkins.org, Touching the Jaguar, Transforming Fear into Action to Change Your Life in the World, really gets into how each of us as individuals can touch our fears. And when we touch those fears, and for people in the Amazon, I spent a lot of time with, the jaguar is the thing they most fear, but they know that if they, and it's in Vision Quest, if they fear it, they know that in a Vision Quest, if they see a jaguar and they run from it, that fear will keep chasing them. But if they touch it, they'll take its energy and use it in transformation. And as Raul said, we you know, as individuals, we need to look at that, but we also need to look at how that impacts the larger picture. What can each of us do to help create this life economy? As an example, I'm a writer. I love to write. You got to follow your passion. Follow your passion, because if you don't follow your passion, you won't be successful no matter what, no matter how much money you have, as we just heard. So what passion do you have? I have a passion for writing. I love to write. And so I focus on writing, but I write stories. I love to write stories. They're true stories, but I write them in story fashion, so they're fun to read. Touching the Jaguar goes into a lot of stories that I think are a lot of fun, but they all aim toward creating a life economy, toward encouraging each individual to do what's necessary to move in that direction. And I think if you're a carpenter, you encourage your clients to use renewable resources, sustainable wood, sustainable resources. And if your clients say, well, right now that costs a little bit more, you tell them that's not a cost. It's an investment in the future. It's an investment for your children and your grandchildren. Invest in that future. If you're a yoga teacher, you use yoga to encourage people to look at the bigger world. How do I impact that larger world? Because we are a global economy now. Puerto Rico needs to work very hard on becoming more self-sufficient, but also look at what role can Puerto Rico play in a larger world. Previous speaker talked about, you know, having the cloud facilities located there. That depends on having reliable electricity that's cheap. You know, all of the big iCloud companies are now moving toward wind and solar. Amazon, Google, all of them, Facebook. I know the developers that are helping them develop these facilities for their own plants. That's something that you could do in Puerto Rico. But again, I want to end this by just saying that I agree that this is an amazing opportunity in history. We will never go back to the old normal. There's no way. This is the first time in history, as far as we know it, that we've all been totally impacted everywhere on this planet. It's not localized. It's not something where we can say, well, when the earthquake ends or the hurricane ends or the fires end, if I make it, if I survive that, help will arrive. Water will come from someplace, food will come. It may be slow, but eventually it'll come and we'll rebuild. Well, we need to rebuild in a new way. We need to build a life economy. We've been given the warnings. So I'll just end with one story. As many of you know, I write books, yes, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, about global economics, about my life, but I have another side of my life, which is working with indigenous people, mostly in Latin America, throughout Latin America. And one of these indigenous leaders, it was in Ecuador, in the high Andes, a Quechua woman, at one time asked, what do we do to save the earth? I was translating, so I was in the middle of the conversation. She said, the earth, the earth's not in danger, but we are. And so are a lot of other species that we'll take with us. You know, we're like so many fleas. If we get to be too much of a nuisance, Mother Earth, Pachamama, they call it, Pachamama will just blah, 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 shake us all off. And then this lady pointed up at the volcano near her home in Babura. And she said, you know, 20 years ago, that volcano was covered with a nice cat. It isn't anymore. Pachamama is twitching, sending us a message. We better listen. She hasn't shaken us off yet, but if we don't listen, she will shake us off. And I think this coronavirus is the latest example in that shaking, as was Maria, as are the earthquakes. And people around the world are getting this message. We've got to change. So each of you look toward your own passions. In the book, and if you pre-order, you can just go onto my website. You'll see that you'll get some bonus gifts that will start immediately before the book comes out. We're going to start. I'm going to doing some webinars and so forth, where we really go into who are you, and this is what you got to ask yourself: who are you? What are you? What are your passions? And how do your passions relate to creating this better world? What are the blockages? What are the jaguars that stand in your way? And what do you have to do to touch them, to take their energy, to move you forward? It's exciting. This is a blessed time to be alive. And it doesn't always feel that way, I know, but it is a blessed, blessed time to stay alive. So feel the power that you have, and feel the power that you have to change your life and also the world, because we're all in this together. So I live on an island off the coast of Seattle, Washington. And from my island to your island, and which is where I am right now on my island, from my island to your island, I send you big hugs and big love. And we're all going through a crisis here on all these islands, all the islands of the planet. But it's a crisis that's teaching us amazing lessons. So thank you. And Antonio, thank you. Muchas gracias para hacer este programa. Many, many thanks. Te agradezco. Look forward to connecting with all of you at another time.
Anthony, I think you're muted. We can't hear you.
Oh, I said thank you so much, John, for sharing your experience. And that one part about the tiger definitely resonated with me. You know, you have to approach it so that you can get its power and approach fear. That's amazing, my friend. People are in the chat. They're saying like that it was amazing. They're gonna order the book. So thank you again for coming on and sharing your experience. Awesome. All right, Super Manny. Who do we have next, my friend? Super Manny, bring up those slides. All right, there we go.
That was actually a very, very powerful talk from John just now. And it was, I mean, it just makes us think really about the earth that we're living on and how we are just receiving so much resources from it and not thinking of how we can give back. And it was really impactful to hear it.
Absolutely. Okay, so Peter, we're promoting you. Let's give it a, there he goes. Peter, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Give me 1 second.
Peter.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I can't see you, but I can hear you. Can you see me?
Hey, my friend. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you, Anthony.
All right, let's get on into it. Manny, do you want to do the introduction, please? Manny, unmute yourself.
My apologies. Thanks so much. Yes, so for everyone who's listening, we have now Peter O. Estevez, who will be sharing also with us on the stage of TEDx Condado. Peter, thank you so much for coming on.
Manny, thank you. Thank you so much. Anthony, thank you for your leadership. And Luis, my thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. Hello, everyone. I am Peter, and I am an alcoholic. I am also a father, a son, a brother, uncle, neighbor, and an entrepreneur. Addiction hides in plain sight. I love to drink. I drank when I was happy. I drank when I was sad. I drank when I was lonely, and I drank to celebrate. I just drank. Drinking gave me the confidence of John Wayne, the looks of George Clooney, the dance moves of John Travolta, and the swagger of Clint Eastwood. Drinking made me feel happy and alive. And then it didn't. Drinking slowly turned on me. It destroyed relationships, it bankrupted businesses, it damaged friendships, and drinking wove lies, deception, manipulation, and destruction. Unfortunately, as it is the case in most alcoholics, I could not see this happening. For most people, drinking means conviviality, companionship, and laughter. Not so for the alcoholic in those last days of heavy drinking. The fun and pleasure, they are gone. There's an insisting yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and a heartbreaking obsession that someday a miracle of control will enable us to do it. There is always one more attempt, and at one more drink, and one more massive failure. The less people around us tolerated us, the more we withdrew from society and from life itself, as we become subjects of king alcohol. Such shivering denizens of his mad realm and the chilling vapor of his loneliness settles in, it thickens, ever becoming blacker. Some of us seek out sort of places hoping to find companionship and approval. Momentarily we do. Then would come the oblivion, the awful awakening to face the four horsemen: terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. After many defeats, I found a solution to facing my demons in a 12-step program. When I walked into my first meeting, I just wanted my life back. I wanted to learn how to manage my drinking. To my surprise, what I discovered was a new way of living. When I started my path of recovery, I learned that I have an excessive addiction to alcohol. I learned that I have a disease that centers in my mind. I learned that once I take a drink, I will go places and take actions that normal drinkers do not do. I learned that my behavior becomes selfish and self-centered. I learned that I seek to mask a pain that I have not addressed. Most importantly, I learned that alcohol is a disease suffered by an estimated 15% of the world's population and over 28 million Americans. I learned that I am not alone. I learned that the opposite of addiction is connection. I learned that with others, I became we and that my recovery could commence. I learned that I had a problem and that I am not a problem. And I learned to apply the 12 steps to recovery in my daily life. 1, I admitted that I was powerless and that my life had become unmanageable. It was an eye-opener for me to see my reality. 2, I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Who is that power? I would ask myself. 3, I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. I was so desperate and I had no will. My life would be better managed by anyone else other than myself. 4, I made a soul-searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. That was easy. I had no morals. But yes, the inventory helped me identify the causes and effects of my disease. 5, I admitted to God, to myself, and to another human being the exact nature of my wrongs. By admitting my dark, very demons to my sponsor, I was free. More importantly, it opened the door for the first time to genuine relationships. Number 6, I am entirely ready for God to remove all those defects in my character. You know, I was not aware that I had any character defects. In fact, many of my character defects I liked. Unfortunately, they had all turned against me. Number 7, I humbly asked God to remove my shortcomings. What? My shortcomings? These were the tools to my survival. What would I do? Why would I change that? I couldn't understand. Number 8, I made a list of all people whom I had harmed, and I became willing to make amends to them all. You know, after pondering for a long time, the list became very long. Most of my life, I saw myself as a victim when in reality, I was a perpetrator. Number 9, I made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so will injure them or others. Many people were glad to see me sober and to have acknowledged my disease. A few have forgotten how much I drank and thought I was exaggerating, and these were the same people that begged me to stop drinking. And of course, others wanted nothing to do with me. Number 10, I continue to take personal inventory today, and when I am wrong, I proudly admit it. This step allows me to look at myself on a daily basis and to not fall back into my old patterns of behavior. Number 11, I seek through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God as I understand Him. And I pray only for the knowledge of His will and the power to carry that out. This is something that I truly enjoy. I often give God my wish list, though, and I ask Him to follow it. You know what I mean? That doesn't always work for me. Number 12, while having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, I tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice its principles in all of my affairs. An alcoholic is able to better understand another alcoholic. Alcoholics in our disease will sacrifice our children, lives, marriages, careers, fortunes, and so much more in the name of one more drink. Recovery has made me aware of my disease. Recovery has given me a new way of life, and I am now equipped with a toolbox that allows me to identify my addictions, unmanageability, character defects, and shortcomings. Recovery has taught me a new concept of spirituality. You know, today I know that I do not need alcohol to get drunk. I can get drunk on power, lying, cheating, deceiving, controlling, or womanizing. I'm on many, many other things. However, when I am active in my full recovery, I can balance my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual sobriety. Today, I am no longer an alcoholic. I am no longer a drunk. I am an alcoholic active in my recovery. So please, next time you see a friend, a sister, a brother, a father, a wife, a husband, a son, a daughter, or a stranger drunk, remember, they could very well be the alcoholic that still suffers. As you learned today, addiction hides in plain sight. You know, why did I decide to do a talk on this particular topic? Because I want to bring awareness to mental illness, to addiction, but more importantly, recovery. There is a solution if we look for one. Thank you so much, TEDx, for allowing me this opportunity to be here with you today. My thoughts and my family's thoughts and prayers are with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Peter. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences. Superman 8.
Awesome, Peter. Thank you so much. It was really, thank you for really being vulnerable and transparent with everybody and and sharing your story with us. I think we all needed it. Perfect. So next on deck, we have Jason Capital.
My main man, Jason Capital. Jason, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Amazing. My man, looks like you already got some friends in the chat. Been waiting for you.
Awesome. Very excited to be here. perfect. Can you guys see me?
Yep, ready
Yeah.
when you are.
Perfect.
Well, here you go. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm very, very excited to be here, especially under the, the circumstances and everything. And what I want to talk about and share with everyone here today is it's a tool that I stumbled upon that I believe has the power to help anyone change anything in their life. It won't happen overnight. It won't happen in 5 seconds, but it is a tool that they'll be able to use over and over and over for the rest of their life to change anything. I know that's a big statement, and the title of this is Why I Quit Netflix, and that is what I want to talk about here. So recently I was in New York City with my girlfriend, Natalie, and I was there doing some client meetings. I run an agency. We partner with some of the biggest brands and influencers on the planet. And I had a great meeting with the client that day. From the outside looking in, it looks like everything's going great in my life. And I go to dinner with Natalie that night, and I look at her and I go, Natalie, I'm in trouble and I need your help. And she goes, what do you mean? What's wrong, right? And again, from the outside looking in, I'm very disciplined typically. It's what I coach all my clients to be, and we're usually very good. And she's like, I don't understand, what do you need help with? And I said, listen, the last 10 days, I have stayed up later than I wanted to watching Netflix. See, maybe some people here have seen the show Narcos, or you saw that it was on Netflix. I know millions of people have watched the show, and for some reason, I really like Narcos. And it comes out on Netflix. This was a couple weeks before New York, and I'm like, I am not watching this new season. I've seen the other ones. I will not watch this one. I have too many important things going on. I will not let myself do it and wait 2 days. What do you know? My hand is reaching for the remote and I can't help it, and I'm watching Netflix. And I wonder how many of us at one time or another have found ourselves looking at Netflix or our phone or some other addiction that we have that we can't seem to get over. And it's not like a life-threatening addiction, or so it seems, but if we don't change something, it will end up ruining our lives, right? And for me, it was this Netflix show, right? I'm literally grabbing the remote, turning Narcos on, and I'm literally saying to myself, why are you doing this? You don't want to be doing this. Don't do this. And yet I'm still doing it. And I tell Natalie, I have this problem. I can't stop watching Netflix. I want to go to bed earlier. I want to wake up earlier. I need to change this. I will not get back into this habit, because I see so many people get in this habit of, Netflix and chill and whatnot. And we sat down at dinner and we put together a plan. And it started with me being disgusted. And in my experience, this is where all change stems from. This is the catalyst for all change. We must become disgusted with our current circumstances, our current conditions, in order to have the leverage we need to make a change that can actually last, right? And there's a great quote that says, all progress starts with truth, right? And if we know we want to change something in our life, and the question I would ask anyone listening, or everyone who sees this, is what is something you have in your life that you find yourself doing, but you don't want to do it anymore, but you can't stop? Whatever that thing is, we have to stop telling ourselves it's okay. We have to stop telling ourselves that it's fine, that it's not that bad. We compare ourselves to people who are much worse, and we make ourselves feel better about it. All progress starts with truth. What if it is that bad? What if it, how is it costing us? How is it hurting us, right? And so all progress starts with truth. And that was my coming to truth moment with Natalie, and saying, I need to change this. I need to take control of this. So that's the first step, is disgust. I was disgusted with the scenario. And I told her, I'm going to stop this and I'm going to do something better instead. And that was the second step, which was making a decision. So first it goes, we get disgusted with the thing, and then we have to make a decision that we're going to do something about it. And the problem is, most people, they say things. They say, I'm going to change this. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to get the promotion. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to quit smoking. But, most people don't follow through, right? Gyms on January 1st, the beginning of the year, are packed. And by January 21, they're almost empty, because most people have given up on their own New Year's resolutions. And so what I did to make it a real decision is, we don't just make a decision. We don't just say, I'm going to change this. We make a public pledge. What is a public pledge? A public pledge is when you share your decision with a curated group of people that you respect and you admire. In other words, these are people that you don't want to let down, and you let them know, I am making this change. I am making this decision. And that will give you all kinds of leverage. But it's not just a public pledge. The second thing I did, so those of you who don't know, I have been an online marketer I'm in my 12th year now. I am obsessed with marketing and human psychology. It's my favorite thing in the world. It's all I talk about. It's all I do. And one thing I know that works really well in marketing is a challenge, right? I mean, there's lots of things that work well in marketing, but a challenge works really well. Like, you know, if you promote on a Facebook ad, a 6-week fat loss challenge, you're going to get a lot of people signing up for that. People like challenges. And one thing I've realized is, well, if it works so well on other people, why not use it on the most important person in the world, which is ourselves or yourself, right? And so it wasn't just, it wasn't just, hey, I'm gonna stop watching Netflix, right? And the decision I made was I'm gonna go to bed, not watch Netflix, I'm gonna go to bed at 9 p.m. I'm gonna wake up at 5 a.m. every day. That is my new habit. That is what I'm going to do. And so it wasn't just a public pledge, we turned it into a 6-week challenge. And the way I do a 6-week challenge, and the way I recommend everyone do this, if you plan on doing this yourself, is there has to be incentive if you follow through, and there has to be consequence or punishment if you don't. So you have to set yourself up with a reward. If you do this every day for the next 6 weeks, what will your big, juicy, passionate reward be that you really want? And if you don't follow through, what will be the painful cost that you don't want, right? And so we kind of use behavioral conditioning. We use like B.F. Skinner type stuff on ourselves. And so for me, my reward was, you know, there's a mentor, there's a guy out there, his name's Dean Jackson. He got a great podcast. I love the guy, and he does consulting. And I said, if I follow through, I'm going to pay him for a consulting call. That's what I'm going to do. And if I don't follow through on this, I am going to donate $10,000 to the political candidate that I don't want to win the 2020 election. And that would be very painful for me and for a lot of people. So I kind of got the pain and pleasure seesaw working in my favor as well. And the way it looks, if everyone can see this, I kind of printed this out so everyone can see. All I did is you get a whiteboard, and you put it, or a piece of paper, you put it on the refrigerator or something, and you just list out really 7 days across and 6 down. This is 42 days. And every day you follow through, you put an X. Every day you don't follow through, you put an O. And you put this somewhere public where your curated people who you don't want to let down can see it. So they can see if you missed a day, they can see if you follow through. And you can see here, I missed a couple of days. X's are, I did it. This was taken about a month ago. And the O's were days where I missed it. So I wasn't perfect. And this is a big problem people have when they try to make changes. You go, well, I missed a day, therefore I'm a failure and I give up. We make an identity out of it. And no, let's not do that. What I do is I want to redefine success for this challenge. And my definition of success for this challenge was, I don't need to be perfect for all 6 weeks and all 42 days. I just need to hit 90%. And that's damn good. That's better than it was before. And I will follow through on that. And so this is better than a decision for most people, but we still take it further. And so the next thing that we did is, and this is the final part of the decision, is you just want to make what is called a daily pre-commitment with this. So if I started this, you know, I'm going to bed at 11 p.m. I'm watching Netflix, and I'm going to bed at 9 p.m. I'm not watching Netflix. I'm getting up earlier. And I was like, I'm going to do this for 42 days. And I'm looking out at 42 days. That's a lot. And that can be overwhelming to us, right? And so instead of looking at 42 days, I just want to look at one day, right? I just want to look at one day, a daily pre-commitment. And a pre-commitment means at the beginning of the day, I pre-commit to I will, just today, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month. I don't know, I'm not sure, but today I will go to bed at 9 and I will wake up at 5. And we may not be able to do it forever, but we can do it for today. And so when you put all that together, you get something that is a lot more powerful than a normal decision that most people make. And so we discussed it, we make a decision, we load it up with all this psychology, a public pledge. We turn it into a 6-week challenge. We public accountability with the whiteboard. We do our daily pre-commitment. And then the third step in this 4-phase process for change is a micro habit, right? Because the question Natalie asked me at dinner was, okay, you're going to do a whiteboard. That's crazy, but okay, you're going to do all this other stuff. I get it. Are you really going to be able to follow through on this stuff, right? And what it needs to be is, before this can become a habit, it has to become a micro habit, right? John Wooden, who's one of my heroes, the winningest basketball coach of all time, he used to say that in life, in business, in basketball, and anything, there are no big things, only a bunch of little things. And those little things make the big things happen. And so when it comes to a habit, I'm not focused on the big habit. I'm just focused on the little things that will add up to a big habit over time. And so when you change your mind frame to, I need to create this whole new habit, which can be overwhelming, to just, I just need to make a micro habit, right? And the micro habit to me is just the first 7 days. And what I do in those first 7 days is I'm going to put all of my energy and all my focus into, let me just get through today, day 1. Let me just get through today, day 2. And if I can get through those first 3, 5, 7 days, I'm going to start to gain momentum towards changing this micro habit into a habit. And so the final step, discussed, decision, micro habit, is of course habit, right? When the micro habit actually becomes a habit, when it becomes something that you do, when I just actually go to bed at 9 and I actually wake up at 5, right? And the question that me and Natalie talked about at dinner, which is like, why do so many people fall back to their old habits? Why is it so hard for so many people to follow through? How many of us here in the last 12 months have said to ourselves, I'm going to stop doing that and I'm going to start doing this? And yet how many of us actually followed through on that? Why is that, right? So one of my mentors, Eben Pagan, he says that replacing an old habit with a new one is like defying gravity. And he is exactly right. The habits that we have in place, they are ingrained, they're like gravity. And defying gravity isn't easy. And what he calls it is habit gravity and escape velocity. And the metaphor that he uses is when a rocket ship is leaving Earth and going out of Earth's atmosphere, it's going to use 90 to 95% of its energy just to get out of the atmosphere. And once it's out, it's actually pretty smooth. It doesn't need that much energy. You can kind of coast from there. And defying gravity, replacing an old habit with a new one, is the exact same thing. So those first 7 days, 10 days, 14 days, those are the most important times for you when you are establishing this new habit. You need to front load the energy like a rocket leaving Earth with 90 or 95% of energy just to get out of the atmosphere. And once you get past there, day 14, 18, 20, somewhere in there, it actually becomes much, much easier. And that is how you form a habit. And so for any change that we want, it's discussed, decision, micro habit, habit. And in case anyone was wondering, now today, I do go to bed at 9, I do wake up at 5, and I haven't looked at Netflix since then, right? And I'm sure I'm missing out on some stuff, but it's been a lot better since. My question for everyone here, if I can leave you with anything, is what habit are you going to change? What is going to be your 6-week challenge? Whatever it is, I want you to know you can make the change. If you use all of these tools and you put them all together, it can kind of create this really high leverage effect where you're going to feel like you have all these things working for you instead of against you, and defying gravity, establishing a new habit can actually become something good. And once you get good at this, it gets really exciting because many people begin to develop like a positive addiction for growth and personal evolution. And in case you're wondering, my next DDHH, my next habit that I'll be changing, because now I'm addicted to stuff. I want to do a 6-week challenge every 6 weeks. I just bought a violin, and my next 6-week challenge is to learn how to not suck at the violin. So I'm going to give that my best shot. And thank you guys so much for having me here. And I hope that was useful for anyone out there.
Jason, thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience.
Absolutely. Thanks, Anthony.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jason, for coming on. I was waiting for the shake it off, but this definitely helped out a lot too, doing the 6-week challenges. So thank you for sharing that with all of us. All right. And for our next speaker, we have on deck very powerful entrepreneurial woman who is Margie Vera.
And Margie is not ready, so we're not going to introduce her yet.
Yep. Perfect. So then, the next speaker is someone who maybe some of you do not know, but he's an amazing and passionate entrepreneur who has moved to the island of Puerto Rico and is making moves to make Wi-Fi and the dream possible for everyone, and who is the CEO of Disrupt. Let's welcome Tony Delgado.
Thank you so much, my friend. Okay, great. Can everybody see the presentation in full screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So my name's Tony Delgado, and I think Wi-Fi is a human right. So I'm 18 years old, and I walk into a bank, and I'm super nervous. My palms are sweaty, my heart's beating, and I look at the security guard at the door, and he looks back at me, and he kind of gives me this dirty look. And back then, I used to wear baggy pants and a baseball hat. And I get online, and I'm waiting, one customer, two customers, my heart pounding, waiting for my chance to see the teller. And it's finally my turn. I walk up to the bank teller, and I hand her a little piece of paper. And I make a withdrawal of $20,000. She looks at the paper, she looks at me, she looks at the paper again, types some stuff in her computer, and then she asks me, how do you want it? 50s, 100s, or 20s? And I'm 18 years old. I look back at her and I think, and I say, give it to me all in 20s. So she goes into the register and she counts out 1,000 $20 bills. And for me at that time, that was the most money I had ever saw. And she counts it in front of me. It takes her a really long time. She puts all the money, stuffs it into a white envelope. And then she hands me the money. And I put it into my pocket. It barely even fit in my jeans. And I start walking towards the door. And my heart's pounding. And I feel nervous. I feel sweaty. I give one last look at the security guard. And he gives me a dirty look. And I walk out. And so I get in front of the bank. And I'm on the street. And I feel like I just robbed the bank. But the truth was I didn't rob the bank. So how did I make the money? I made the money online. You see, back then, I used to sell CDs. There was this website called Napster, this other website called LimeWire, where you could download any CD in the world. And then you could burn them. So I would burn CDs. And in the beginning, I would just sell them in my local neighborhood. So I would sell them at school. I would sell them after school, sell them in the local stores. And I would make $50 a week, maybe 100 on a good week. But I had a limitation, and that was because the small town where I went to high school, the population was only 15,000 people back in 2005. And once I took those same CDs and I brought them online, I discovered the power of the digital economy. And I went from making $50 a week to making $3,000 a day. And I had a huge breakthrough. I'm only 18 years old. And I realized that in a month or a few weeks, I could make more than my teachers were making in an entire year. And this baffled me. This really blew my mind. And the reason I was able to do that is because I leveraged the power of the digital economy. And I wasn't just selling to the people in my small town in New Jersey. I was able to sell to people from France, people from Italy, Europe, Japan, Korea, Canada, Latin America. People from all around the world were able to become my customers. I was able to tap into the 4.5 billion people. That's how many people are online today. Over 50% of the global population. And that number is going to continue to rise. So the power of the internet is unlimited. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So we have a huge problem. I'm sure you're aware, and it wouldn't be right if I tried to step over it. Right now, we are in the midst of a pandemic, the coronavirus. But while most people are social distancing and they're worried about the social distancing, they're also simultaneously financially distancing. Because most people, the way that they live their lives is they're only able to make money from the people that are in their general vicinity. They're only able to make money from the people around them. And so when you quarantine people, when you make people stay home and they're not taking advantage of the digital economy, then not only do they social distance, but they get financially distanced as well. And right now, if you're not making money online, then you're in trouble. Because the streets are closed. Here in Puerto Rico, we have a lockdown. We can only drive 3 days out of the week. Other cities around the country, around the globe, are stopping travel. But for entrepreneurs like me, our businesses haven't changed that much. All of our businesses are online. We're used to doing Zoom calls. We're used to having customers all around the world. I really don't have that many customers here in Puerto Rico. My customers are global, they're in New York. But if you're not making money online, then the chances are you're gonna be in really big trouble. 20,296. That is the average household income here in Puerto Rico. And the big question is why, right? Why is the income significantly lower on the island of Puerto Rico than in the rest of the United States? Well, if we look at the jobs, the most popular jobs on the island, a lot of them are transactional. A lot of them are hyper localized. So things like cashiers, chefs, security guards and surveillance, jobs that they're not taking part of the global economy. They're focused solely on the localized economy. And what's Puerto Rico's #1 export? So believe it or not, it's not avocados or sugar or any of those other things. It's actually our people. So for the last 10 to 20 years, people have been leaving Puerto Rico. Puerto Ricans have been traveling and relocating, searching for opportunities, going to New York, going to Texas, California, Chicago. And those numbers have only accelerated since Hurricane Maria. So much so, in fact, that there are now more Puerto Ricans in the United States than there are here in Puerto Rico. Twice as many, in fact. There's 5.8 million Puerto Ricans that live in the United States, while there's only 2.8 here on the island. And it's pretty easy to see why. If you look at the math, the average household income as compared to 20,000 on the island is 63,000 in the United States. But the thing that they don't tell you is that the cost of living in the United States is much higher than it is here. So although you think that you're going to chase a new opportunity, you end up, because of inflation, because of the cost of living, you end up in the similar circumstances. As a matter of fact, the top 10 states where people live paycheck to paycheck, which basically means you're broke, basically means all of the money that you make goes to your bills, are those same states where we're going to: New York, Florida, California, etc. So the big question is, what can we do about it? So I want to go through some misconceptions, some old ways of thinking, and some lies about money and making money, and then I want to go through new ways of thinking. So one of the old ways of thinking, they say that you have to be born with money, right? You have to, if you don't come from money, you have to be born with it, right? And while there are advantages, that is no longer true. And I'm going to look at a quote from Bill Gates. He said, if you are born poor, it is not your fault. It is not your fault. If you were born, like I was, to a single mother, if you were born to, and your parents didn't go to Harvard, that's not your fault. But what is your fault is if you decide to stay that way. Because we've never had this many new millionaires being created. And it's all thanks to the power of the digital economy, the power of the internet. So I want to go through the 3 secrets to thrive in this new economy. So number 1 is to never stop learning. So the old way of thinking here is that you go to college, you get $100,000 in college debt, and then you go out and you get a good job, and you work at the same job for 40 years, you get a 401k and a pension, and that's the path to being successful. But what we've seen through economic crises, not only the ones that are happening now, but in 2008 and prior, is that's no longer the case. The idea that you can just go to college and fresh out of college, your degree is going to land you a high-paying job, it's just not true. My cousin went to Brown University, really great school. He got a football scholarship, and he ended up making $8 an hour when he got out, even though he had a degree from a really prestigious school. Because we now have more degrees. Degrees have now become a commodity in the marketplace. It used to be only a select few number of people in the world were going to college, but now more than ever, college is really prevalent. And so quote one of my mentors, Robert Kiyosaki. He says that the rich do not work for money. Entrepreneurs work for free. And that's a really disruptive idea. Like even me, like Mr. Disrupt, when I first heard that, I was really taken off guard. It took me a while to understand it. But what he means is when you work for an hourly wage, when you confine your income to being an employee and not being an investor, not being an entrepreneur, that is where you limit yourself. But they will never teach you that in school because our schools are not being taught by entrepreneurs. Our schools, for the most part, there are some amazing entrepreneurs that retire and get back, but for the most part, our schools are not filled with doers. Just ask any calculus teacher. Ask them if they practice calculus outside of the classroom. Most of them don't. So we're teaching calculus to our students, but we're not teaching them about taxes. We're not teaching them how to invest in stocks, trade 401ks. We're not teaching them how to invest in real estate, all these other mathematical, numerical things that we could be teaching. We're not, because the real estate brokers are out practicing real estate. The stock investors are out practicing that. But with the power of the digital economy, we can have experts become the teachers. So the truth is that the school system cannot teach you about money because it wasn't designed to do that. It was designed to create factory workers. The new way of thinking is online education, continued education that doesn't stop in 4 years. You learn for your entire life. You're constantly improving. And entrepreneurship, like everyone needs a side hustle. The thing that's going to, even if you work a full-time job, the thing that's going to give you the most freedom is to have some sort of entrepreneurship, whether it's a side hustle, a full-time hustle, multiple businesses, multiple investments. But entrepreneurship is the thing that's going to give you freedom. And education is now on demand. So now we have apps like Zoom, what we're using right now, online courses that you can buy, live streaming, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, and even podcasts, all these new ways to continue learning. There's Harvard lectures, Harvard publishes, MIT publishes, a lot of their lectures all online. And education has never been easier. Number 2 is to surround yourself with greatness. So Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan, Warren Buffett, what do all these people have in common? They all have mentors. They all have coaches. And, you know, it's really easy to say, oh, well, I don't need a mentor, right? But if you think about athletes for a second, there's not one great athlete that doesn't have a coach. Even Rocky Balboa, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, they all have coaches. So we don't question it when it happens in the sports world, in the sports arena, but when it happens in the business world, in the life arena, somehow it's questioned. But even if you look at the biggest performers in business, Mark Zuckerberg was mentored by Steve Jobs. Bill Gates was mentored by Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett was mentored by many people. So you have to surround yourself with the right people. And mentorship does not have to be the people that you see on a daily basis. They can be digital. Mentorship can happen through a podcast. Mentorship can happen through YouTube, through all these different types of digital mediums. And it used to be, the old way of thinking was that you had to leave your house and you had to, maybe move to a big city in order to get mentored by these people. But now, with the power of these apps, with the power of the digital economy, you can listen to audiobooks on Audible and learn from the greatest minds in the world. You can subscribe to the best YouTube channels. You can connect with people on the Modi app and video chat with them. You can connect with people on podcasts, on Instagram, on Zoom. And you can use these digital platforms to have mentorship in all these different ways. And you don't have to travel all across the world. You know, our ancestors here in Puerto Rico, they traveled from Spain and from Europe, and they got on ships and they came to Puerto Rico. And they came to the New World to look for opportunities. And then years later, our ancestors went and they went to New York and they went to Miami and Orlando and California to look for opportunities, right? But you don't have to leave your geographical location to look for opportunities. They're all right here. They're all here on your phone. So I want to talk about Act 20. I think it's called Act 60 now. We had some speakers that were speaking about it. And Act 20 is an incentive, some tax incentives and business incentives that were designed not by the United States. I'm pretty sure the United States politicians don't even like these laws. They were not designed by the United States. They were not designed by gringos or people in the US. They're actually designed by the politicians here in Puerto Rico. And they were designed to bring in new ideas and new money. And the reason that they did that was to help the Puerto Rican people, because success is contagious. It's more contagious than the coronavirus. If you surround yourself with 5 millionaires, chances are that you will be the 6th. But just the same way, if you surround yourself with 5 people who are broke, 5 people who are struggling, 5 people who are depressed and unhappy, then you will be the 6th as well. So both success and poverty are contagious. And to quote the former governor of Puerto Rico, we need to share in wealth, not poverty. So the more new ideas, new people that you surround yourself with, whether it's in person, whether it's online digitally, like events like this, whether it's through a podcast or audiobook digitally, you need to surround yourself with winners and learn from successful people. Success leaves clues. So number 3 is everyone is now a global business. And when I say everyone, I literally mean everyone. You'll see right now through the coronavirus, these quarantines, personal trainers, fitness trainers, who traditionally only train the people in their neighborhood are now going online, using things like FaceTime to do personal training sessions. My wife is currently doing personal training sessions with someone in the United States. Why? Because now she has clients from all around the world. She's not stuck in a geographical location. Everyone is a business. You are a business. And even if you are an employee, you are a brand. Your brand lives on LinkedIn. Your brand lives on social media. People will Google you before they do business with you. They'll Google you before they hire you. So everyone is a global brand. Everyone is a global business. So you need to figure this out quick. The old way of thinking was, I need to be in the right place at the right time. But the new way of thinking, the right place is right here. It's in your pocket. You need to think global, not local, if you want to survive in this new economy. To quote Bill Gates, if your business is not on the internet, then your business will be out of business. And he said that 10, 20 years ago now, and it couldn't be more true. You need to be taking advantage of the digital economy, because the internet is the great equalizer. It equalizes us economically. That's why you'll see 17-year-old, 18-year-old kids that start multi-million-dollar brands like the Movement watches. They were able to sell that company to Fossil. You were a couple of kids in their 20s, but the internet equalized them. It didn't matter what their race was. It didn't matter how old they were. None of those things mattered. The market, the global market, decided their success. It didn't matter that they came from a small town. None of those things mattered. And the lack of internet access creates poverty. And I'm going to demonstrate that. So here are the poverty statistics for Puerto Rico. Now, if you notice the dark red areas, those are areas where the poverty is either from 60 to 80%, and in some cases even more than 80%. Now, I'm going to show you another map. Here is internet service providers for Puerto Rico. And if you notice, some of those same exact areas either have 0 providers, or they may have one internet provider where the internet's really unreliable, it's really slow. Some areas of Puerto Rico are still on dial-up and really slow connections. And the internet creates opportunity. I have a lot of friends here in Puerto Rico that were born here. They speak amazing English. And it's not because they went to school and learned it. They actually learned it playing Xbox Live because they were connected with people all around the world, just playing Xbox, having fun, right? But they were learning. Learning comes in so many different shapes and sizes. But if you don't have access to the internet, then you're at a disadvantage. So I believe that every Puerto Rican resident deserves access to fast and free internet service. And I believe that internet should be a human right. So what's my new idea? My new idea for TED? It's actually not a new idea at all. So New York City already implemented this a few years ago. Super fast, free, public Wi-Fi. New York City, on every single street corner, and even in the subways, they provide fast, free, municipal internet access because they know that internet access can give people access to jobs, entrepreneurship, communication with family, so many important things. So they installed these smart Wi-Fi systems, and they also have tablets that people can literally use for free. So even if you didn't have a phone or a laptop to connect it to, you can literally use these tablets absolutely free. They ripped out all the old phone systems, all the old pay phones, and they installed these smart free Wi-Fi tablets all throughout New York City. And they even put free Wi-Fi in the subway. So no matter where you are, you're connected. And New York City is one of the biggest cities in the whole world. And I think that Puerto Rico should follow in their lead. Puerto Rico needs free public Wi-Fi. It needs to be a partnership between the public sector and the private sector. And we need to be installing it municipally run in municipalities all throughout Puerto Rico, but really starting at those municipalities that I showed you earlier, where access to the internet is so limited. And that might sound like a radical idea, that might sound crazy, right? But if you think back, we didn't always guarantee water and electricity. There was a time in American history where electricity was not guaranteed. You would move into a house and maybe it had electricity, maybe it didn't. Maybe it had running water, maybe it didn't. But now today in the United States, it's pretty accepted that every human being has access to water and electricity. And I would even argue that lack of access to the internet is inhumane. Just as it would be inhumane to not have a shower and not have a place to use the bathroom and not have light at night when it's dark, I would argue that in 2020, when you need an email address in order to apply for college and get a student loan, when in order to fill out a job application, even at something, a place like Walmart or a place like McDonald's even, you need internet access to go online because they don't do the applications in person anymore. I would argue that in 2020, lack of internet access is inhumane. Because Wi-Fi creates money, it creates wealth, it plugs us into the biggest global economy in the world. It creates jobs and opportunities for people to work from home, right? Everyone's not an entrepreneur, but you can work from home. Wi-Fi creates education. No longer do we have to be reliant solely on the traditional education system. I think traditional education is great, but now we can augment it with things like YouTube and live streams and online courses, digital courses offered by some of the top universities, top teachers, top experts in the world. Wi-Fi creates opportunity. But most importantly, Wi-Fi gives us a voice like we've never had before, a political voice to speak back to big business, back to big corporations. If a big corporation, a business, literally the president, you can tweet at the president of the United States, you can tweet at every single political leader, political figure. If a business is doing something wrong, those things can be exposed. If a politician is doing something wrong, those things can be exposed thanks to the internet. The internet gives us more democracy because it gives us freedom of speech and it gives us a voice. And that voice can be heard. it doesn't always fall on deaf ears. So this is Ricky Martin. You guys know Ricky Martin. He is a musician, a creator, an entertainer, and he has a huge social media reach here in Puerto Rico and throughout the world. And when the governor of Puerto Rico was exposed for corruption and for various wrongdoings throughout the island of Puerto Rico, mishandlings in the supplies after Hurricane Maria, really nasty comments and things that were said during Hurricane Maria. Ricky Martin was part of the movement that exposed him. And I'm not here to get into politics, but regardless of how you feel on that situation, Ricky Martin helped to mobilize hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans throughout the island. And they marched on the Capitol. And they didn't just do it once. They did it day after day, after week after week. The governor refused to resign. But after a while, he had no choice. And Ricky Martin and tons of other influencers who teamed up and partnered with him were successful. And the governor was forced to resign. So more important than just the democratization of the economy, the internet gives us a voice. And that's why I believe that Wi-Fi is a human right. Thank you.
Amazing. Anthony, thank you so much for sharing that with us and really just putting into perspective the importance and the power of having connection to internet. I feel like, especially nowadays with the pandemic that's going on and most people at home, their main way for them to communicate with the world, with their family, to make sure that everybody's okay, even to secure their family financially, is being able to connect to the internet and even learn new skills, like you were saying. Right? They're able to learn new skills and they're able to make financial freedom for themselves by using the internet and having the global economy. So thank you so much for sharing that. Some applause in there.
Thank you.
Perfect. Now we are still in full effect.
Next up, we have Brock Pierce. Brock on the line.
Where do I unmute? You are muted. There we go. Start my video. There we are. All right. Hola. Hello. Mi nombre es, or my name is Brock Pierce. I've spent most of my life on the front lines of innovation as an entrepreneur, venture capitalist, or as I prefer to say, a conscious capitalist, and more recently as a philanthropist, making use of the latest technologies to drive change, from media to games to advertising and payment systems to alternative realities or virtual worlds, to digital currency and the technologies that drive decentralization. All of this work has brought me to understand the most important way we can use this technology, and that is to create a resilient, sustainable, and regenerative future. I've gone through life seeing opportunities, and I pursued those where I believed I could be successful. Now I understand it's not about the money. It's about the mission or the why. I see technology as a tool for positive change. I've made it my life's mission to positively impact the lives of 1 billion people. As a futurist, or someone who spends most of their time thinking about the future, the current data and state of the world gives me great hope, but also great cause for concern. As a result of that, I spent a lot of time thinking about the needs of the world and how to be prepared for some of the challenges ahead. I've asked myself some questions. How do I make myself more resilient individually? How do I improve the resiliency of my family and immediate circle? How do I improve the resiliency of my community and the regions in which I live? In the world of technology, we often talk about minimally viable products, or MVPs. I view resiliency as the minimal viable threshold for survival. That is by no means the goal. The goal is to create a resilient society, to grow into a world of sustainability, and ultimately regeneration that preserves the earth for our species and allows us to thrive, so that the world around us improves because of our decisions and the actions that follow. I'd like to share with you some of my findings and some of the things I've learned in how to survive the next great crisis. If you're watching this, at least so far, you've already survived a great crisis. And like most crises, it came when you least expected it. These types of challenges rarely come with notice, which is why preparedness is imperative. The number one thing you can do is be radically self-reliant in these times. So how do we survive as a society in the long term? There are three main principles that will drive our survival. The first, resiliency, is the baseline. This is the bottom of the pyramid for our basic needs: food, water, shelter, power, and of course, Wi-Fi. When any of these are out of balance, we have critical issues and need to immediately revive them. Sustainability whenever possible. This is the point where we have raised the bar to a net zero impact, meaning we are not negatively impacting the world around us. This often involves being conscious of our civic responsibility and not leaving a trace. I encourage everyone to attempt to do this as often as you can in your daily life. Third, regeneration, which should always be the goal. Regeneration is rising above and beyond leaving no trace or having a net zero impact. It's where we are leaving things better than we found it. When you have risen to the top of the pyramid, you are elevating the world around you. This often requires communal effort. It requires a shift in behavior. It requires innovative thinking. It's the goal we should all aspire to achieve. These are universal concepts that can be broadly applied. We don't have enough time to discuss it in the context of everything, so I'm going to focus on a few core areas to improve our lives and increase our chances of survival for the next great crisis. I moved to Puerto Rico shortly after Hurricane Maria in 2017, so I was present for some of the aftermath from that disaster. Due to the centralized power grid being old and on an island with tropical rainforest, we had repeated power outages. The storm had knocked down trees that knocked down power lines that were inaccessible to fix, the results of which was the longest blackout in American history. This should have been expected. Puerto Rico is located in a place that has hurricanes, and like anywhere in the world, we should all be aware of the risks of predictable natural disasters, not necessarily their exact timing or when they will strike, but to be prepared for them when they do. By the end of 2018, U.S. federal officials spent more than $3 billion to end the longest blackout in U.S. history and return the Puerto Rican power grid to pre-storm conditions. Why return it to pre-storm conditions? What about improvements? Well, that's due to policy, which we won't focus on here today. The point being is that none of the underlying issues that caused this were addressed. So how the future grid is built or rebuilt is a key factor in preparing Puerto Rico for the next big hurricane. Puerto Rican officials have estimated that it will take an additional $26 billion to upgrade the island's energy grid. Though that money has not been approved by Washington, the timing for such a thing is unknown. So what can we do now? The problem is not limited to Puerto Rico. Most of the world runs on an aging, centralized energy grid with central points of failure. So how can you protect yourself? How can you be more radically self-reliant? The first thing you can do, and this applies to most of us all over the world, is to have a generator and sufficient fuel to power it for whatever you deem to be your targeted allotment of time. This is not a sustainable answer, and is not likely something that you're going to use regularly. The sustainable answer is renewable energy. Clean energy solutions exist most everywhere in the world, which often make use of the climate and geography, such as wind, geothermal, hydro, solar, and so forth. In Puerto Rico, we have about 2,800 hours of sunlight per year, which results in an average of 340 days of substantial sunlight. So in this region, we are well suited for solar energy solutions that can empower us to sustain our power needs on or off grid. Peer-to-peer power solutions are also emerging all over the world, where we have the ability to create our own power, not just for ourselves, but with an ability to distribute it back into the grid or to our neighbors. Last year, Puerto Rico passed a law that allows communities to create energy cooperatives of microgrids, so anyone can go off grid for sustainable energy. This is the first step in creating a distributed power grid, and island-wide energy resilience moving towards sustainability. Let's go back to the base of the pyramid and something even more critical for our survival: food and water. One way to think about this is to assess hypothetical risks. For example, what would happen if global trade or shipping were to briefly, or not so briefly, cut us off from the rest of the world? In this instance, we would survive on existing inventory and whatever we are able to locally produce. I'm not going to focus on stockpiling provisions such as MREs or toilet paper. There are plenty of prepper guides online to assist you with that. Instead, let's focus on how we can create food resiliency or security in our local community or region. Let's start with water, because this is a much simpler system. I filter all of my own water rather than buying it. How insane is it to live in a land where water abundantly falls from the sky and is often found underneath us, yet we import most of it in plastic bottles from far away? If you want to talk about cost savings, invest in a water filtration system and purify your own water. Also, most people don't grow their own food. They barely know where their food comes from. So the answer to this challenge may come from choosing to know. Ask yourself a question the next time you're going to eat something. Where did this come from? How did it get here? What's in it? Through knowing, we are able to make better informed decisions. And those decisions can influence more than just how we feel and our health. It can impact the broader ecosystem and the world around us. The Dominican Republic is a net exporter of food, meaning they produce more than they consume. Yet in Puerto Rico, 85% of the food is imported from 52 countries, from as far away as Australia. So these two neighboring islands have similar climates with 4 growing seasons, though there's a substantial difference in their food security. In Puerto Rico, we only have a few months of food supply on the island. If another crisis were to occur that disrupts supply chains, this could present a serious problem. This is a problem that isn't just limited to Puerto Rico. Most of the world has a huge dependency on food imports. We can all benefit from greater food security if we wish to survive the next great crisis. Now, more than ever, I see the direct benefits of being able to feed my family through the land around us. I don't expect all of us to grow enough food to sustain ourselves, even though most of us have the ability to grow at least some food, even if we live in concrete jungles. I've even learned some neat things, such as how to regrow certain fruits and vegetables from their remains or seeds. So how do we achieve food resiliency or security and make sure we are ready for the next crisis? By increasing local production. My goal is to buy everything I possibly can locally. This is a challenge here in Puerto Rico that doesn't stop me from trying. We will get there if we put our money into the hands of the people who are creating food security for everyone who lives in the region. Support your local farmers. Some people hesitate to buy locally grown food because it may have a higher price point. But as with all markets, as scale is achieved, the prices should come down and the entire local economy benefits. Long term, the cost is less, especially when you consider your health. There are also health benefits from eating food grown locally. For example, eating honey produced by local bees helps your body's defenses against allergens in the air around you. And the shorter travel time of that fresh produce to get to you means that it'll have more nutrients and antioxidants. Eating foods that are in season and harmonious with nature requires less pesticides and other additives or scientific modifications to grow. You are what you eat, and good food is medicine. The best medicine being preventative medicine. Bad food can also harm us. Type 2 diabetes is directly linked to diet. In Puerto Rico, you have an adult population of just over 2.6 million. In adults in Puerto Rico, you have over 16% with diabetes. That's over 438,000 cases. So choose what you eat wisely. The global pandemic of COVID-19 has taught us to be prepared. The world as we know it can change in a moment. The greatest defense against a virus like this is being in good health and having a resilient body. If food and water are the base of the pyramid, the body would be the foundation it rests upon. The ultimate resilience is in your body's resilience. Sometimes our body needs additional defenses. There may come a time when your body is invaded with a virus. Chemical warfare is the only solution, and fortunately, humanity, through the use of science, has done a great job in creating conventional medicines. If we want to be reliant on our own systems, producing energy locally, growing food locally, then shouldn't we consider making our medicines locally, or at least regionally? Until recently, relatively recently, Puerto Rico was a dominant player in the manufacture of prescription drugs. The reason? Tax breaks. In 2006, everything came crashing down when policy reform caused taxation on pharmaceutical companies, causing many of the large manufacturers to leave. Still, in 2016, approximately 30% of Puerto Rico's GDP was composed of pharmaceuticals and medical devices manufactured on the island. And these products were two of Puerto Rico's largest exports. Medical product manufacturing helps support a highly skilled workforce in Puerto Rico. Residents employed in the drug and medical device industries collectively earn approximately $800 million in wages a year. America relies on Puerto Rico for many key medical products. 8% of pharmaceutical expenditures by Americans are for products manufactured here on island. From an economic perspective, there's clearly a big short-term opportunity in reactivating existing industry. What has been the primary driver or economic force in Puerto Rico? Pharmaceutical production. If we want to jumpstart the Puerto Rican economy to create economic prosperity and abundance with immediacy, it would be in reigniting this existing industry and taking advantage of the established infrastructure. Due to COVID-19, there should be the need for locally produced pharmaceuticals. From a nationwide perspective, the U.S. could benefit from growth in Puerto Rican manufacturing of medicines, as well as Puerto Rico locally. This is at the top of the industrial level. With my background and life experience, I'd like us to take us to the opposite end of the spectrum, or the entrepreneurial side of the ecosystem's development and startups. What can each person do individually? While we might have felt like we're in captivity during a great crisis, there is a freedom and independence associated with the shift of how we work. We are entering into the gig economy, a time when independent contractors will be the norm. Instead of being dependent on just one job, we may have many. On an individual level, how does this affect me? How do I create financial resiliency or job resiliency? Less than a century ago, a generation or two ago, when you took a job, you might keep it through retirement. The idea of working your whole life for one company is gone. In the US, many people are working a job for only a few years now. There is no such thing as job security. How can you be more resilient in the event of a sudden loss of job? At a time when job security is disappearing, I encourage you to look at the gig economy, which doesn't offer job security, but it does offer flexibility where you can work for yourself. Another option is to be an entrepreneur, to start a business. In the time that I've been here in Puerto Rico, one of the main things is the incredible potential of the people on the island. Puerto Rico has more bachelor degrees per capita than anywhere in the United States, which makes clear the potential for Puerto Rican business. There are many new job opportunities as a result of the emergence of the gig economy, from ride-sharing services to food delivery apps, and pretty much anything you can think of is becoming on demand. The next great crisis might not be a natural disaster. The next great crisis might not be a pandemic. It might be economic in nature that threatens our financial resiliency in a way never before seen. Seeing as we don't know what it will be, when it will be, or where it will be, I'd like to close on this note. My intentions today are not to cause you to be fearful, but to be prepared, to be mindful of the future and the events that might transpire so that you can weather those storms better than you would otherwise. I hope that what I've shared with you today has inspired you. More than anything, I hope to have inspired you to take the next step, how to survive the next great crisis. Be prepared, be ready for whatever comes. Thank you. Gracias.
Rock, thank you so much for sharing, my friend.
Yes.
I hope you are staying safe and healthy and happy in these trying times.
I am indeed very productive and getting a lot of time with family. As I like to tell everyone, this is an opportunity to get your house in order, to organize your home. And I don't mean that just figuratively. I mean it literally too. This is an opportunity to restart, reevaluate your entire life. And when this is over, to reemerge like a phoenix or a butterfly from the chrysalis. This is an incredible opportunity to reinvent yourself and to create the best life, the life you dream of.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason just texted me too, one of the other speakers who just wrapped up, and he said, we're all going to get through this and we're going to be stronger because of it, right?
It's important to remind people of the hope, right? The silver lining, because there's a lot of people, actually, probably most people right now are in a state of fear. And, you know, it's important that we're aware of what's happening so that we make wise decisions and respond accordingly, but not let fear, you know, take over, right? But to be aware and to stay in a state of love, stay in a place of hope. You know, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. You know, and make some lemonade out of the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, pressure creates diamonds. So we're going to be under a lot of pressure, but the diamonds are on the way.
Indeed, indeed. Well, great job with how were things for you? How was TEDx? And really glad to see, Louise, that you've recovered from or well far along in your recovery. So that's the most important thing. Again, it can't be overstated. And amazing job being resilient. Right? You were given quite the curveball here. All this time, all this energy planning this event, and then not being able to host it. But you found a way to persevere and still complete the mission and turn one into two. Right?
Yeah,
you're going to do the event twice. So that's called being. That's taking advantage of the opportunity that's in front of you. Right? You said, okay, we faced a challenge. We can't host our event. Well, we're going to do the first ever live TEDx talk, and we're going to make it into 2 events.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope that other people, you know, that's why a lot of people ask me, oh, well, why didn't you just reschedule it? Because people need hope. And the same way how we reacted, you need to react that way in your life, in your business, right? If the hardballs are going to come out at you, and you need to be able to react and actually, you know, at least make the best of it, or maybe even turn it into something even better. Like I have some entrepreneurial friends who they have their whole teams working from home now. And they're like, well, they're getting more done at home. So maybe even when this is over, they could just stay there and work from home. We could save some money on real estate. And
well, that's I think as an industry, commercial office space is going to really take a big hit from this, because we've already been going through this, call it distributed workforce, or this process of virtualization or working from home. It's been slowly happening for, you know, over a decade now. This event is going to accelerate it rapidly, because, you know, where people weren't sure and they weren't comfortable and they wanted to maintain old habits or old practices, now like everybody was just thrown into the deep end of the pool. And guess what? Everyone can swim. And oh wait, we can do this. Oh, and wait, maybe it's actually better. Oh, and we can save money. So I think that this is going to be like a tsunami in accelerating the process of, you know, working from home and the gig economy and everything else. It's giving people freedom, right? It's giving us our freedom of our lives back, rather than having to work in a cubicle, which quite frankly is not, I think, a good thing for humanity anyway.
Yeah, that's no way to live. We kind of like ripped the Band-Aid off the status quo. Right? Like for me, it didn't change my life too much. I always work from home, I'm a big proponent of it. But for a lot of people, it's their first time at it. And like you said, I mean, just rip the freaking Band-Aid off, and it's time to do it.
So any highlights you wish to share? Because this was the end of it, yes?
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, I want to thank you and each and every single other speaker who went out of their way during a crisis. I know some people are like doubling down on work. We had a few speakers drop out, but for the most part, everyone came through. And so I want to thank you and all the other speakers for coming through and sharing their experiences and being a part of it, you know, and giving people hope. I mean, that's the thing too. You know, this is canceled, that's canceled. One of the speakers that called me, he's like, you know, this is what I do. I speak on stages, and my whole year's you know, disrupted. So to give people hope, if they're used to either speaking on stages, or they're used to attending events and getting that information, not leaving them at home going crazy and waiting for this to be over. No, we can still survive, and we can still make stuff happen digitally. And I'm excited. So we have an event. I'll do a little plug real quick. We have an event that's coming up on 4/20, so it's very soon, and it's in about two to 3 weeks, and we're going to be interviewing John McAfee. And then I just asked you and your team if you're available as well, and we're going to turn.
I confirmed.
Yeah, you confirmed. So yeah, we're going to do like a digital summit. That'll be like a disrupt event. And we're going to do like the first digital version of a disrupt event. And so it's creating more opportunities, creating more innovation, all around the world. Someone just texted me, one of the people that's watching, he said, this is like going to entrepreneurship church, being with us here all day. But yeah, I think people need hope. They need to see that business can still operate, things can still happen, even in the face of no agreement, in the face of adversity, that people can still make shit happen.
No doubt. And, we're adaptable. I mean, we're a very adaptable species. We'll figure it out. We can deal with this. The main thing is we've learned is social quarantine, stay at home through this period, more than anything, just to minimize the burden on the healthcare system, right? For many of us, this wouldn't hurt us too much, but for the benefit of everybody else, we need to make sure that our healthcare system doesn't collapse under the weight of too many people, going in at one time. Here in Puerto Rico, especially, we're currently at a relatively low count, but we only have, I think, 300 ICUs on the island right now. And so if something were to happen here, like we're seeing in other parts of the world or even the US right now, it could be very disastrous. And so for the benefit, and by the way, great job to the Puerto Rican government in this case. Puerto Rico was the first to respond with mandatory quarantines, which probably we all questioned at first, but with the benefit of hindsight now, it was a really good call, and it might have saved a lot of lives and protected our healthcare system.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It wasn't ready for it.
Well, no, not even the mainland was ready. And I think it's making us wake up to like globalization, to, our supply chain. We're relying on China for all these different parts of the supply chain. That's why I really loved your presentation talking about sustainability, right? If all our food's coming from off the island, well, what happens when they stop sending ships? If all our medical supplies, all our masks are coming from China. My brother-in-law works for UNICEF, and he's doing procurement for all of Latin America, and they can't get masks because China has the virus. So where the hell are they going to get all the masks from? Because there's no manufacturing. So I think it's going to be a great opportunity for Puerto Rico, the United States, and the entire world to, maybe take a step back from globalization, take a step back from all the reliance on China, and start becoming more self-sufficient.
I mean, that's what I wanted to cover in today's talk. I didn't want it to be, I wanted it to be evergreen in content, and I wanted it to be something that was had lessons in it beyond just that of Puerto Rico, but with a lot of relevant sort of stories and information or data here, because these same concepts, these same issues are not limited to here. These are problems that many people face all over the world, and we need food security. We have water security if we just do the basics. That's a simple one that we can all get there. Energy, go get your solar panels, make sure that you're, energy independent and that you can take care of yourself in a time of need. And especially in times like this is an opportunity to reignite the Puerto Rican pharmaceutical and medical manufacturing industry. I mean, if that happens as a result of this crisis, this could be the biggest thing that happened to Puerto Rico in 20 plus years in terms of economic impact and job creation. I really hope that people see this opportunity and lean into it, from a business perspective, because I think the demand and the interest is clearly there from a federal government perspective. This is really an opportunity for Puerto Rico to take this lemon and make something good out of it. And as a result of it, the United States would benefit greatly as well, to bring back a lot of those jobs and manufacturing that left Puerto Rico and went to China and went to India. This is an opportunity to bring some of those jobs and to bring back some of that economic activity, to the nation. I think that's it. And I don't know if you saw, but Steve Mnuchin, the Secretary of Treasury, has been talking about this. This is not like I'm just mentioning it. It's in the zeitgeist. The people in the federal government are conscious of it, aware of it, thinking about it. And so if the business owners and operators here that are in that industry, do their part, it's a very real opportunity.
Absolutely. What do you predict? I know you're not Nostradamus, but what do you predict the economy is going to look like in 6 months? Let's say 6 months, this thing's all cleared up. The doors are open, quarantine's over, everyone's back to work. But what does the economy look like after 6 months of quarantine?
Yeah. So, the first thing that some people assumed, I didn't believe this, is this concept of a V shape, right? The economy comes down and the economy rebounds immediately. I think that is zero chance, unfortunately. That would be wonderful, but isn't going to happen. The other concept is a U, right? Where we find ourselves in this economic, call it recession, or in the bottom of the trough, and then eventually it recovers. Some people might take a position that could be as early as September, October. Unfortunately, some things are never going to recover. There's a lot of retail businesses that are going to get shut down, that are not going to come back online as a result of this. A lot of restaurants, a lot of small and medium businesses that are unfortunately likely just going to be wrecked as a result of it.
Small business is going to be annihilated. I'm not worried about the big guys. They're talking about bailing out the airlines. Small business is going to be annihilated. There are many small businesses that they're working on small margins. They're month to month, and 1 month without revenue, 2 months without revenue. These restaurants and small mom and pop stores, they're done.
So here's the numbers that are a little scary. And so the world's debt, right? The global debt market is, call it $260 trillion. The total bank capital, or the capital that's actually sitting in the banks that's levered up to issue essentially all that debt, is only about 10 trillion. So we are very, very levered. And so there's only about 4% assets underlying, call it the global economy. Take the hospitality and travel industry. That one industry alone, global GDP. GDP is $250 trillion, sorry. And so the airline industry and hospitality industry represents about 10% of global GDP. So if we see a 4% swing in the global economy, that has the potential to basically bankrupt the world. When you start to look at the big macro numbers, it's really scary. We are not prepared for something that could set the economy off by 5%. It could be devastating. And that's not taking into consideration, the quadrillion-dollar, derivatives market. And so when you look at the sort of big numbers and how levered the world economy is, it's very scary. Hopefully, the Fed and hopefully governments can navigate their way through this, because it has the potential to, we could potentially we could see a systemic, sort of financial collapse, which is clearly something none of us wants. Whatever your background is, whatever your position on government is, whatever your position on the Fed is, we don't want to see the world's economy collapse right now. We got enough problems as it is. And so, I'm praying that we figure out how to work our way through this, and hopefully we see a speedy recovery. But it really depends, industry by industry, geography by geography. Here in Puerto Rico, I'm doing what I can. We just launched a $100,000 philanthropic campaign to buy food from local farmers, local produce, and we're delivering that food to people in Puerto Rico that are most in need. If you have a service job right now, you're in mandatory quarantine. You're not allowed to work. There's so many jobs right now that people have no income. And yeah, there's some government aid coming, but it's not coming fast enough. And because we are not part of the U.S. tax system, the way it currently works to get your pay is if you filed a tax return, you get an ACH to your account. Puerto Rico is not part of that system. So the delays in the Puerto Rican people receiving that government handout to those people that need it most is going to be further delayed. And some people they're running out of food. They don't know how to feed themselves right now. They don't know how to take care of their families. And that is very, very scary. And also the local farmers, because the restaurants aren't open, their businesses are being disrupted. So one of the things that I'm personally focused on, and I'm spending a lot of my time, is figuring out how to get money to the farmers to keep them working and make sure that food production, continues, and how to get that food into the hands that are most in need right now. And there are many of those. And so this first campaign is a $100,000 experiment. We're working with the Puerto Rican Food Bank on a dollar-to-dollar matching sort of thing. That campaign should hopefully go live tomorrow or Monday. We're also producing masks here on the island. Still a small number, but we've started to do production. And we're not, these are not like the N95 masks, but these are the silk masks that are fairly effective in most non-medical uses. And so we've started doing that. And then I'm actively working with friends of mine around the world in terms of the PPEs and importing necessary medical equipment from China, Korea, and other places, and bringing that into the United States principally, and working with hospitals and the healthcare system around the country. It's not my core focus, but people call me because I'm a connector. And so, someone is like, I've got inventory, Brock, do you know how to find the hospitals? I'm like, yeah, talk to so-and-so. Or I've got people that are working with the hospitals that have the purchase orders, and they're like, I need 1 million masks. Where do I get it? I'm like, go talk to this guy or talk to that woman. And so I'm fielding many of those calls a day, and trying to help facilitate as much as I can to support our healthcare system. And so I'm in it, and then on top of it, enjoying I feel I'm more productive than I've ever been, because I've got no social life. Basically, I feel like a better father and a better family man than I've ever been. And I feel, from a work sort of productivity perspective, more productive than ever. And a lot of it is really good work. Like, it's stuff that just you wake up feeling really good about the things that you're doing in life and the way that you're spending your time. Because I measure my success in life by the positive impact I have in the world. I don't measure it by, financial success anymore. I feel like I've won that game sufficiently. I wasn't playing that game to be the wealthiest person in the world. I feel I succeeded well enough to say, okay, that game, put that one aside. Let's go play a more interesting one, which is, the game of help others. And, I'm doing what little I can, as a little man, but I get better every day.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your commitment. Thank you for everything that you're doing, everything that you're working on. I think it's going to be a lot better to save the system we have than to burn it to the ground and try to start all over again. So we all have to come together. We all have to chip in to make things work. If there's anything that I can do to support me, the Sharp Foundation, my people, let me know, and would love to help and learn more about some of those initiatives.
I will follow up with you on that, because in life, we need all the help we can get. At least I can speak for myself in that case. I need all the help I can get. None of what I've accomplished in life I did by myself. It was done with the support of many others, and a lot of help along the way.
Absolutely. Well, Brock, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I hope everyone got value out of all these different amazing speakers. If anyone has questions, look like people are like raising their hands and stuff. If anyone has questions, drop them in the chat. And if not, then I think we're gonna be wrapping up, tuning in. The talks will be online. We're gonna send all the talks into TED. TED has to review them and approve them, and then hopefully they'll be online shortly. But yeah, I hope that everyone stays safe, stays blessed, and thank you guys again.